"Sir, my mother won't wake up," the little girl said. Grant Whitmore stopped mid-stride, his running shoes squeaking against the cold pavement. The child couldn't have been more than 7 years old, standing in front of the crumbling apartment building in her pink pajamas. No coat. No shoes. Just bare feet on frozen concrete in the early January morning. What? Grant pulled out his earbuds, certain he'd misheard. "My mama," the little girl said again, her voice shaking. "She won't wake up. I shook her but she just lies there. Her skin is so cold." Grant's blood turned to ice. He glanced at his watch, 6:47 a.m. He was supposed to meet his business partner Trevor in 40 minutes to prepare for their presentation to the board. But those details evaporated as he looked into the child's terrified brown eyes. "Show me," he said. The little girl grabbed his hand and pulled him into the building. The lobby smelled of mildew and old cooking grease. They climbed 3 flights of stairs, the girl moving fast despite her bare feet. She led him to apartment 3C and pushed open the door that had been left ajar. Inside, the apartment was tiny but spotlessly clean. A small kitchen table held a single bowl of cereal, now soggy. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. And on the sagging couch in the living room lay a woman, completely still. Grant rushed over and knelt beside her. The woman was young, maybe early 30s, with beautiful dark skin and her hair wrapped in a colorful scarf. Her chest rose and fell barely. Her skin felt clammy and cold to the touch. "Call 911, Grant barked, pulling out his phone. His fingers shook as he dialed. The little girl stood frozen, watching with wide eyes. 911, what's your emergency? I need an ambulance at 447 Riverside Avenue, apartment 3C. A woman is unconscious, breathing but unresponsive. She's cold to the touch." The dispatcher asked questions. Grant answered them as best he could while checking the woman's pulse. Weak but steady. He grabbed a blanket from the back of the couch and covered her. "Is she your wife, sir?" "No, her daughter found me. I was running by and the child said her mother wouldn't wake up. The ambulance is 4 minutes away. Stay on the line with me." Grant looked at the little girl who had started crying silently, tears streaming down her round cheeks. He held out his free arm and she ran to him, burying her face in his shoulder. His expensive running jacket was probably ruined but he didn't care. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked gently. "Brianna," she whispered. "Brianna, the ambulance is coming. They're going to help your mama. Can you tell me her name?" "Shanice. Shanice Thompson." Grant stroked Brianna's hair, keeping one hand on Shanice's wrist to monitor her pulse. He could hear sirens now getting closer. The dispatcher stayed on the line, asking him to update her on any changes. The paramedics arrived in a rush of activity. They swarmed into the tiny apartment with equipment and confident movements. Grant stepped back, still holding Brianna, as they checked Shanice's vital signs and asked rapid-fire questions. "Do you know if she has any medical conditions?" one paramedic asked. Grant looked at Brianna. "Does your mama take any medicine?" Brianna nodded and pointed to the bathroom. "In there. The orange bottles." A paramedic retrieved them and read the labels. "Insulin. She's diabetic. Blood sugar is dangerously low. Looks like she hasn't been taking her medication consistently." They worked quickly, starting in 4 and preparing to transport Shanice. Grant watched, his heart pounding. This woman was someone's daughter, someone's mother. How had things gotten this bad? "We're taking her to St. Catherine's Hospital," the lead paramedic said. "Are you family?" "No, but her daughter is right here." The paramedics looked at Brianna, then at each other. "The child can ride with us, but we need to contact other family members." "Does she have a father? Grandparents?" Brianna shook her head. "Daddy died. It's just me and Mama." Grant felt something crack inside his chest. "I'll follow in my car and stay with Brianna until we can figure this out." One of the paramedics nodded. "We need to go now." They loaded Shanice onto a stretcher. Brianna clung to Grant's hand as they followed the paramedics down the stairs and out to the ambulance. The morning sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Neighbors had started to gather, watching from windows and doorways. Grant helped Brianna into the ambulance, then ran to his car parked 2 blocks away. His presentation, his meeting, his entire carefully planned day had vanished. None of it mattered. He followed the ambulance through the awakening city, his mind racing. At the hospital, chaos erupted. Doctors and nurses took over from the paramedics, wheeling Shanice into the emergency department. Grant kept Brianna close, signing forms and answering questions as best he could. He texted Trevor, "Family emergency. Can't make the meeting." You'll have to present alone. Sorry. Trevor's response came immediately. Everything okay? Grant typed back, long story. I'll explain later. A social worker appeared, a kind-faced woman named Patricia Chin who knelt down to talk to Brianna. Sweetheart, we're taking good care of your mama. Can you tell me if there's anyone else we should call? An aunt or uncle? A grandmother? Brianna shook her head. Mama's parents died before I was born. Daddy's mama lives far away in Texas. We don't really talk to her. Patricia looked at Grant with questions in her eyes. He pulled her aside and explained how he'd met Brianna, how he'd found Shanice unconscious. You don't know this family at all? Patricia asked. No. But I'm not leaving that little girl alone. Patricia studied him for a moment, then nodded. Let me see what I can find out about her mother's condition. In the meantime, Brianna needs breakfast. There's a cafeteria on the second floor. Grant took Brianna's hand and led her to the elevator. She hadn't spoken much since they arrived at the hospital. In the cafeteria, he loaded a tray with pancakes, eggs, orange juice, and a chocolate muffin. Brianna picked at the food. Is Mama going to die? She asked suddenly, her voice small. Grant's throat tightened. The doctors here are very good. They're doing everything they can to help her. She's been so tired lately. She works all the time. Sometimes she doesn't eat because she says she's not hungry, but I think it's because there's not enough food. The words hit Grant like a punch. He'd grown up with every advantage. Private schools, summer camps, college paid for, a trust fund that ensured he'd never know hunger or fear. This child, sitting across from him in her rumpled pajamas, knew both intimately. Brianna, your mama is going to get better, he said firmly. And I'm going to make sure you both have everything you need. She looked at him with those big brown eyes, wanting desperately to believe him. They sat in the cafeteria for over an hour before Patricia found them. Brianna, your mama is stable. She's awake and asking for you. Would you like to see her? Brianna jumped up so fast she nearly knocked over her juice. Grant followed them through the hospital corridors to a room in the intensive care unit. Shanice lay in the bed, hooked up to various machines, but her eyes were open. Mama? Brianna ran to the bed. Shanice's face crumpled as she reached for her daughter. Baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Mama. This nice man helped me. His name is... Brianna turned to Grant. I don't know your name. Grant, he said, stepping forward. Grant Whitmore. Shanice looked at him, confusion and gratitude warring in her expression. You helped my baby? She found me when I was running. I called 911. Tears spilled down Shanice's cheeks. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know what would have happened if... Don't think about that, Grant said gently. You're safe now. The doctor said you collapsed from exhaustion and malnutrition. Your blood sugar was extremely low. Shanice closed her eyes. I ran out of insulin last week. I was trying to stretch it until my next paycheck. Grant felt anger rise in his chest, not at Shanice but at a system that forced someone to ration life-saving medication. When do you get paid? Friday. 3 more days. And you have 3 jobs? Shanice nodded weakly. I clean offices at night, work at a grocery store during the day, and do bookkeeping for a small business on weekends. It's barely enough to cover rent and Brianna's asthma medication and food and... Her voice trailed off. Grant could see the shame in her eyes, the exhaustion that went bone deep. Not anymore, he said firmly. I'm going to help you. Shanice started to shake her head. I can't accept charity. I don't even know you. It's not charity. It's basic human decency. Your daughter saved your life this morning by being brave enough to ask a stranger for help. Now let me help both of you. A doctor entered the room, interrupting the moment. Miss Thompson, I need to discuss your treatment plan. We're going to keep you here for at least a week to stabilize your condition and get your diabetes under control. A week? Shanice's eyes widened with panic. I can't afford. I don't have insurance. And my job's. We'll figure it out, Grant said. He looked at the doctor. Send all bills to me. I'll handle it. Sir, do you understand that a week in the ICU could cost? I don't care what it costs, Grant interrupted. Just take care of her. The doctor nodded slowly and turned back to Shanice. You need rest and proper nutrition. Your body has been running on empty for too long. If your daughter hadn't found help when she did, you might not have woken up at all. Shanice's hand tightened on Brianna's. I know. I was trying so hard to keep everything together. After the doctor left, Patricia returned. Brianna, we need to make arrangements for you while your mother is in the hospital. I've been trying to reach your grandmother in Texas. She won't come, Shanice said bitterly. She never approved of my marriage. When my husband died, she said it was God's judgment. Grant saw red. What kind of person said that to a grieving widow? Then Brianna stays with me, he said. 3 pairs of eyes turned to him in shock. Mr. Whitmore, Patricia said carefully. You're a stranger to this family. I can't just. Then do a background check. Call anyone you need to call. I have a guest room in my house. I have resources. I can make sure Brianna gets to school, has food, has everything she needs while her mother recovers. Grant, Shanice whispered. That's too much. You've already done so much. It's not enough, Grant said, and he meant it. You need to focus on getting better, not worrying about Brianna. Let me help. He could see Shanice wrestling with pride and desperation. Finally, she looked at her daughter's hopeful face and nodded. Okay. But just until I'm released. Patricia said she'd need to do some paperwork and make some calls, but given the unusual circumstances, she'd try to expedite things. Grant gave her his information. His address, his company name, references. While Patricia made calls, Grant sat with Shanice and Brianna. He learned that Shanice had been an accountant before her husband's death, but medical bills from his cancer treatment had destroyed her credit and made it impossible to maintain her career. She'd lost their small house, their car, everything. She'd been rebuilding from nothing for 2 years, doing whatever work she could find. I'm not a victim, Shanice said fiercely. I'm a survivor. But sometimes surviving isn't enough. Sometimes you need to actually live. Grant understood that in a way he never had before. He'd been so focused on building his company, on success and achievement, that he'd forgotten what really mattered. This morning, a little girl in pink pajamas had reminded him. By early afternoon, Patricia had approved Grant's temporary guardianship of Brianna. He drove back to the apartment with the little girl to pack some clothes and toys. The apartment looked even smaller in daylight. Grant noticed details he'd missed in the chaos. The carefully mended curtains, the library books stacked neatly on a shelf, the calendar on the wall where Shanice had written encouraging messages for each day. January 8th, you are doing great, one read. January 9th, Brianna's smile makes everything worthwhile. Today's date, January 10th, simply said, keep going. Grant felt a lump in his throat. This woman had been fighting so hard, all alone, and still finding reasons to hope. What would you do if you saw a child standing barefoot in the cold, desperate for help? Would you stop or would you keep running? Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness change everything. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to hear what happens next. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in Grant's place. Grant's house felt too large and too quiet as he led Brianna inside. The little girl clutched her backpack, her eyes wide as she took in the high ceilings, the polished hardwood floors, the artwork on the walls. You live here all by yourself? She asked. Just me, Grant confirmed. He'd bought the house 3 years ago, thinking he'd fill it with a family someday. Instead, it had become a showcase of his success and a reminder of his loneliness. He showed Brianna to the guest room, which he'd hastily prepared during the drive back from the hospital. Clean sheets on the bed, fresh towels in the attached bathroom, a desk by the window. Brianna set down her backpack and walked slowly around the room, touching things gently as if afraid they might break. Is this really for me? She asked. For as long as you need it, Grant said. Are you hungry? We could order pizza for dinner. Brianna's face lit up. I like pepperoni. While they waited for the pizza, Grant called his assistant Rebecca and explained the situation. She listened without interrupting, which was one of the many reasons he valued her. I need you to clear my schedule for the next few days, he said. Cancel everything that isn't absolutely critical. And I need you to look into something else. He lowered his voice, even though Brianna was in the other room watching cartoons. Shanice Thompson has medical bills she can't pay and she's about to lose 3 jobs. I want you to work with the hospital billing department to make sure everything is covered. And contact her employers. Explain that she's had a medical emergency and needs time to recover. If they won't hold her positions, I'll provide compensation. Grant, Rebecca said carefully. This is very generous, but you barely know this woman. I know enough, Grant said. She's been killing herself trying to provide for her daughter. Nobody should have to choose between life-saving medication and food. Understood. I'll take care of it. How's the little girl doing? Grant glanced toward the living room where Brianna sat curled up on his massive leather couch, looking impossibly small. She's being incredibly brave. But she's terrified. You're doing a good thing, Rebecca said softly. I'll handle everything on this end. After dinner, Grant helped Brianna with her homework. She was in second grade and struggling with a math worksheet about addition and subtraction. He sat beside her at the kitchen table, guiding her through the problems patiently. "Mama usually helps me," Brianna said. "But she's been so tired lately. Sometimes she falls asleep with the pencil in her hand." "Your mama works very hard," Grant said. "She must love you very much." "She tells me every day," Brianna said. "Even when she's really tired and has to go to her night job, she always says, 'I love you, baby girl. You're my reason for everything.'" Grant felt his chest tighten. He thought about his own parents, wealthy and successful, who had provided everything except emotional warmth. He'd gone to the best schools, had the best tutors, wanted for nothing material. But he couldn't remember the last time either of his parents had told him he was their reason for anything. At bedtime, Brianna hesitated at the door of the guest room. "Will you check on Mama?" she asked. "Can you call the hospital?" Grant called and spoke to the night nurse, who reported that Shanice was sleeping comfortably. He relayed this to Brianna, who nodded but still looked worried. "Want me to read you a story?" Grant offered. Brianna retrieved a worn paperback from her backpack, a collection of fairy tales. Grant sat on the edge of the bed and read about princesses and magic and happy endings. Brianna's eyes grew heavy, and by the time he finished the third story she was asleep. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her breathe. Such a small person carrying such enormous worry. He made a silent promise to himself and to her sleeping form. He would make sure Shanice got the help she needed, whatever it took. The next morning, Grant woke early and made pancakes. Brianna appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Did you sleep okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I dreamed Mama came home." "She will," Grant assured her. "But first she needs to get strong again. How about we visit her after breakfast?" At the hospital, they found Shanice looking better than the day before. Color had returned to her cheeks, and she sat propped up in bed rather than lying flat. Her face broke into a smile when Brianna ran to hug her. "Baby, I missed you so much," Shanice murmured, kissing Brianna's forehead. "Were you good for Mr. Whitmore?" "Grant," he corrected gently. "And she was perfect." A doctor came in to check on Shanice. Grant stepped into the hallway with Brianna to give them privacy. A few minutes later, the doctor emerged and motioned for Grant to follow him to a quiet corner. "Mr. Whitmore, I understand you're covering Miss Thompson's medical expenses," the doctor said. "I want you to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with. She's severely malnourished. Her diabetes has been poorly managed for months, maybe longer. She's anemic. She's showing signs of chronic stress. This isn't just about one episode of low blood sugar. Her entire system is shutting down from prolonged neglect." "What does she need?" Grant asked. "Time, rest, proper medication, nutritious food, and significantly less stress. She's been working herself to death, literally. If she goes back to that same situation, we'll see her back here in a few months, and next time we might not be able to save her." Grant absorbed this information. What if she didn't have to go back to that situation? The doctor raised an eyebrow. "I'm a physician, not a social worker. But I can tell you that stress is killing as many people as heart disease these days. If you can help reduce her burden, you'd be doing more than any medicine I can prescribe." Back in Shanice's room, Grant found her crying quietly while Brianna dozed in the chair beside her bed. "Hey," he said softly. "What's wrong?" "The doctor said I have to stay here for at least a week, maybe longer," Shanice whispered. "My rent is due on the 15th. I have bills. I'll lose my jobs. Everything I've been working for." "Already handled," Grant said. "My assistant contacted your employers. They're holding your positions. And I'll cover your rent and bills until you're back on your feet." Shanice stared at him. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Grant sat down in the other visitor chair. "Do you believe in fate?" "Because I don't usually. But I think about what would have happened if I'd chosen a different running route yesterday morning. If I'd put my music on louder. If I'd been 5 minutes earlier or later. Brianna wouldn't have found me. You might have died. And I would have gone to my meeting and made my presentation and never known that I'd run past someone who needed help." "That doesn't answer my question," Shanice said. Grant met her eyes. "I grew up with everything. Money, opportunities, education. And somewhere along the way I forgot that those things don't make you successful. They just make you lucky. You've been fighting for 2 years to give your daughter a good life, working 3 jobs, sacrificing your own health. That takes more strength than anything I've ever done. So let me use what I have to help you. Not because you're a charity case, but because it's the right thing to do." Shanice was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I was an accountant. Before my husband got sick, I worked for a medium-sized firm downtown. I was good at my job. Really good. I was up for promotion when everything fell apart. What happened? Medical bills, Shanice said simply. Even with insurance, cancer treatment costs a fortune. We maxed out credit cards, took out loans. I had to take time off work to care for him. When he died, I couldn't focus. I made mistakes. I got fired. And then the debt collectors started calling. We lost our house. I couldn't get another accounting job with my credit destroyed and a gap in my employment history. So I took whatever work I could find. But you still did bookkeeping on weekends? Grant noted. For a small restaurant in my neighborhood. The owner, Mrs. Rodriguez, knew me before everything happened. She hired me under the table for cash. It kept my skills sharp and gave me hope that maybe someday I could work my way back. An idea was forming in Grant's mind. What if you didn't have to work your way back? What if you could jump directly back into accounting? Shanice laughed bitterly. No one's going to hire me. Not with my history. I would, Grant said. She stared at him. What? My company, Whitmore Financial Solutions. We provide investment and financial planning services to medium-sized businesses. We're growing fast and I need good people. People who understand what it's like to struggle, who won't judge clients who are facing hard times. Grant, I haven't worked in a real accounting position in 2 years. I'm rusty. But we'll train you. Bring you back up to speed. Pay you a real salary with benefits. Health insurance that will cover your diabetes management and Brianna's asthma. A steady income so you can stop working 3 jobs. Shanice's eyes filled with tears. That's too much. You don't even know if I'm any good. Mrs. Rodriguez thinks you're good enough to trust with her restaurant's books. That's a reference right there. Grant leaned forward. Shanice, I'm not offering this out of pity. I'm offering it because you deserve a chance to rebuild your life. And because I think you'd be an asset to my company. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll let me help. Say you'll give yourself permission to accept something good. Shanice looked at her sleeping daughter, then back at Grant. Yes, she whispered. Yes, okay. Thank you. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Grant would work from home in the mornings, making calls and reviewing documents while Brianna did her schoolwork at the kitchen table. In the afternoons, they'd visit Shanice at the hospital. Brianna would curl up beside her mother's bed, telling her about her day, while Grant and Shanice talked about the job opportunity. Rebecca sent over sample financial reports and accounting software tutorials. Shanice studied them hungrily, proving she hadn't forgotten as much as she feared. Grant watched her confidence slowly return as she remembered skills she'd thought were lost. On the 4th day, Grant brought his laptop to the hospital and they went through the employee benefits package together. Shanice's hands shook as she looked at the health insurance coverage. This is comprehensive, she said. Full medical, dental, vision. Mental health coverage. This is better than what I had before. Everyone deserves good health care, Grant said. And the salary we discussed is enough that you can afford a decent apartment in a safe neighborhood. No more choosing between medication and food. Shanice put her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Brianna, coloring at a small table in the corner, looked up with concern. Mama? Are you sad? No, baby, Shanice managed. These are happy tears. Everything is going to be okay now. Grant stepped out to give them privacy. In the hallway he found Patricia, the social worker who had helped them that first day. I've been checking in on the Thompson case, she said. What you're doing for them is remarkable. I'm just offering a job and helping with some bills, Grant said. Patricia smiled. You're offering hope. I've been doing this work for 15 years, and I can tell you that hope is rarer than you'd think. Most people in Shanice's situation just keep sinking until they drown. You threw her a lifeline. She did the hard part, Grant said. She survived. She kept her daughter safe and loved. All I did was show up. Sometimes showing up is everything, Patricia said. That evening as Grant tucked Brianna into bed she said, Grant? Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you going to be in our lives after Mama comes home? Or will you go away? The question hit him harder than he'd expected. Over the past few days, he'd grown attached to this little girl with her bright smile and serious eyes. The house felt less empty with her in it. His carefully ordered life had been disrupted, but in the best possible way. I'd like to stay in your lives, he said honestly. If that's okay with you and your mama. Brianna smiled. I'd like that too. You're nice. And you make good pancakes. Grant laughed. High praise. As he turned off the light, Brianna said sleepily, Grant? Thank you for helping us. I was so scared when Mama wouldn't wake up. But then you came and made everything better. You made everything better, Grant corrected. You were brave enough to ask for help. That takes courage. He closed the door softly and went to his own room. But sleep didn't come easily. He kept thinking about Shanice in that hospital bed, about how close she'd come to dying alone in that tiny apartment. About how Brianna had been minutes away from being orphaned, trapped in a system that was overwhelmed and underfunded. One person, he thought. He'd helped one person and her child. It seemed like such a small thing against the vast ocean of need in the world. But to Shanice and Brianna, it was everything. His phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. How's your family emergency? Grant smiled at the phrase. Getting better, he typed back. Sorry I missed the presentation. We landed the contract, Trevor replied. But that's not important. Take care of whatever you need to take care of. Family comes first. Grant stared at the word family. He'd never had much of one, not really. His parents were alive but distant, more interested in their own pursuits than in him. He had a sister, Amy, who lived in Boston and called once a month out of obligation more than affection. But sitting at his kitchen table with Brianna, helping her with homework, or standing beside Shanice's hospital bed, discussing dreams and possibilities, he'd felt something he hadn't experienced in years: connection. Purpose beyond profit margins and growth strategies. Maybe, he thought, family wasn't just about blood. Maybe it was about showing up. About being there when someone needed you. About choosing every day to care. He fell asleep thinking about Shanice's smile when he'd offered her the job. About the way her eyes had lit up with hope for the first time since he'd met her. About Brianna's small hand in his as they walked through the hospital corridors. Tomorrow the doctors would decide if Shanice was strong enough to be discharged. And then the real work would begin, helping her rebuild a life that was stable and safe and full of possibility. Grant found himself looking forward to it more than he'd looked forward to anything in a long time. 1 week after that frozen January morning, Shanice was discharged from the hospital. Grant picked her up with Brianna bouncing excitedly in the back seat. Shanice looked healthier, stronger, but Grant could see the nervousness in her eyes as she settled into his car. The apartment. She started. Already handled, Grant said. Rebecca went by yesterday with a moving crew. Your belongings are in storage. I found a place I think you'll like. Want to see it? Shanice glanced back at Brianna, who nodded enthusiastically. Okay, she said quietly. Grant drove them to a neighborhood about 20 minutes from his house. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained buildings, a park visible in the distance. He pulled up in front of a 3-story brick building with flower boxes in the windows. This is it, he said. The apartment was on the 2nd floor, a bright 2-bedroom with hardwood floors and large windows that let in streams of afternoon sunlight. Someone had already moved in Shanice's furniture. The carefully mended couch, Brianna's small bed, the kitchen table. But there were new additions too. A larger bed in the main bedroom. A desk and bookshelf in Brianna's room. Fresh curtains. A fully stocked kitchen. Shanice walked through slowly, touching things, her expression unreadable. Brianna ran ahead, squealing with delight at her new room. Mama, come see. I have a real desk. And look at all these books. Grant stayed by the door, suddenly uncertain. Had he overstepped? The apartment was modest by his standards, but it was in a safe neighborhood with good schools. The rent was reasonable. But maybe Shanice felt overwhelmed by his involvement in her life. She came back to where he stood and he was startled to see tears on her cheeks. Grant, it's perfect. It's more than perfect. But I can't let you pay for all this. You're not, Grant said. The security deposit and first month's rent are a signing bonus for your new job. After that, you'll pay rent from your salary. This isn't charity, Shanice. This is just helping you get started. A signing bonus, she repeated, a small smile appearing. That's very creative accounting. I learned from the best, Grant said, and was rewarded when her smile widened. They spent the rest of the afternoon settling in. Grant helped assemble a bookshelf while Brianna organized her toys. Shanice unpacked kitchen items, occasionally stopping to stare out the window as if she couldn't quite believe this was real. When evening came, Grant ordered Chinese food for dinner. They ate sitting on the floor in the living room, using the coffee table because Shanice's dining chairs hadn't survived the move. I'll get new chairs this weekend, Shanice said. We'll go together, Grant offered. I know a great furniture store that has reasonable prices. You've already done so much, Shanice protested. I like furniture shopping, Grant said, which wasn't entirely true. But he realized he liked the idea of spending time with Shanice and Brianna, helping them build their new life. After dinner, Brianna begged Grant to stay and watch a movie with them. He should have said no. He had work to catch up on, emails to answer, reports to review. But Brianna's hopeful face made it impossible to refuse. They watched an animated film about a young girl and her magical adventures. Brianna sat between them on the couch, providing running commentary on every scene. Shanice laughed at her daughter's enthusiasm, and Grant found himself laughing too. When the movie ended, Brianna had fallen asleep against Shanice's side. Grant helped carry the little girl to her new bedroom and watched as Shanice tucked her in with practiced, gentle movements. "She's had a big day," Shanice whispered. "You both have." They moved back to the living room. Grant should have left then, but instead he found himself sitting down on the couch again. Shanice sat at the other end, curling her legs underneath her. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Why did you really do all this? And please don't just say because it was the right thing to do." Grant considered the question. "You want the honest answer?" "Always." "I was lonely," Grant said simply. "I built a successful company. I have money, a nice house, respect in my field. But I didn't have anything that mattered. I'd forgotten what it felt like to connect with people, to care about something beyond quarterly profits. And then Brianna found me on that sidewalk and suddenly I had a purpose. Helping you and your daughter made me feel more alive than I've felt in years." Shanice was quiet for a moment. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard someone say." Grant laughed, surprised. "Sad? You have so much, but you'd convinced yourself you had nothing." "While I had nothing, but I never forgot I had everything that mattered. My daughter, my health, my determination." Funny how perspective works. "You're right," Grant admitted. "I was living in a beautiful house, completely empty. You were living in a tiny apartment, completely full. Well, now I have a slightly less tiny apartment and you have two new friends," Shanice said with a smile. "Seems like we both gained something." "Friends?" The word settled warmly in Grant's chest. "I'd like that. Being friends." "Me too. Though I have to warn you, Brianna is already planning your entire social calendar. She told me today that you promised to teach her chess and take her to the science museum and help her build a volcano for the school science fair." "Did I promise all that?" Grant asked, genuinely trying to remember. "Apparently. She's very good at extracting promises. She gets that from her mother, I bet." Shanice laughed. "Probably." They talked for another hour, and Grant learned more about Shanice's life before tragedy struck. She'd met her husband James in college. They'd married young, built a life together, dreamed of having more children someday. Then James got sick, and those dreams had to be set aside for the more immediate goal of survival. "I don't regret anything," Shanice said. "Every moment I had with him was worth it. And he gave me Brianna. But sometimes I get angry at how unfair it all was. He was a good man. He deserved more time." "I'm sorry you went through that," Grant said. "No one should have to watch the person they love suffer." "Have you ever been in love?" Shanice asked. Grant thought about it. "I thought I was once. In college. But looking back, I think it was more about the idea of being in love than the reality. She wanted things I couldn't give her. Attention, emotional availability, a real partnership. I was too focused on building my career. She left and I didn't fight to keep her. I just worked harder." "Do you regret that?" "I regret not knowing how to be present for someone. I regret making success my only goal. But I don't regret that specific relationship ending. We weren't right for each other." Shanice nodded thoughtfully. "I used to think I'd never want to risk loving someone again. After James died, I told myself that Brianna was enough. And she is. But lately, I've been wondering if maybe I closed myself off too completely." Grant's heart rate picked up, but he kept his voice casual. "There's no timeline for grief. You take whatever time you need. That's what my friend Latoya keeps telling me. She's been trying to set me up on dates for the past year. I keep refusing." "What does Latoya do?" "She's a nurse at St. Catherine's actually. That's how we met years ago when Brianna was born. She's been my rock through everything. She's the one who kept telling me to take care of myself, to eat properly, to see a doctor. I should have listened to her." "Will you listen to her now?" Grant asked gently. "I don't have much choice. You and the doctors and Latoya have all ganged up on me. I'm officially outnumbered." Grant smiled. "Good. You start work in 2 weeks. That gives you time to rest and get stronger. Rebecca will send over the onboarding paperwork tomorrow. And I'd like you to meet with our HR director to discuss what accommodations you might need for managing your diabetes at work." "Accommodations," Shanice repeated. "I'm not used to working somewhere that cares about that." "You'll get used to it," Grant promised. He finally left close to midnight, driving home through quiet streets. His house felt even larger and emptier than usual. He stood in the doorway of the guest room where Brianna had slept for a week. The bed was neatly made, her drawings still taped to the wall. He told her she could leave them up. Grant realized he missed having her there. Missed her chatter and her questions and the way she insisted on helping him make breakfast even though her help usually meant creating more mess. His organized, quiet life had been disrupted, and he discovered he didn't want to go back to the way things were before. The next day, Grant picked up Shanice and Brianna for their furniture shopping trip. They drove to a large store on the outskirts of the city, where Shanice carefully examined price tags and quality before making decisions. "These chairs are nice," Grant said, pointing to a set that would coordinate well with her table. Shanice checked the price and shook her head. "Too expensive. I can get similar ones for less at the discount place. But these are better quality. They'll last longer." "Grant, I appreciate everything you've done, but I need to budget carefully. The salary you're paying me is generous, but I have debts to pay off. I can't afford to buy expensive furniture right now." She was right, of course. Grant admired her fiscal responsibility even as he wanted to argue that she deserved nice things. They compromised on mid-range chairs that were on sale. While Shanice looked at kitchen items, Brianna tugged on Grant's sleeve. "Can we look at the toys?" Grant glanced at Shanice, who nodded permission. He walked with Brianna to the toy section, where she examined everything with serious concentration. "Do you like board games?" Grant asked. "Mama and I play checkers sometimes. She's really good." Grant selected a chess set. "How about I teach you chess? It's like checkers but more complicated." Brianna's eyes lit up. "Really? You'll teach me?" "Absolutely. We'll start this weekend if your mom says it's okay." They rejoined Shanice at the checkout line. She raised an eyebrow at the chess set but didn't object. As they loaded purchases into Grant's car, his phone rang. His sister Amy. "Grant, I've been trying to reach you for days," Amy said without preamble. "Where have you been?" "Sorry, I've had a lot going on." "Family emergency." "What family emergency? Is Mom okay?" "Dad. They're fine. It's complicated. I'll explain later." "Are you coming to Boston for my gallery opening next month?" "I need to know for the guest list." Grant had completely forgotten about Amy's art show. "Of course. I'll be there." "Good. Bring a date if you want. It might make the evening less boring for you." They hung up, and Grant realized Shanice was watching him with a curious expression. "Sister?" she asked. "Yeah, Amy. She's an artist in Boston. We're not particularly close, but I try to support her work." "Why aren't you close?" Grant helped Brianna into her car seat before answering. "We grew up in a house where achievement mattered more than affection. Amy rebelled by becoming an artist, which our parents viewed as frivolous. I rebelled by trying to be the perfect son, which meant I never learned how to have real relationships with anyone." "That's sad," Shanice said. "It is," Grant agreed. "But I'm trying to do better." Over the next week, Grant fell into a new routine. He'd start his days early, working from his home office. Around lunchtime, he'd drive to Shanice's apartment to check in. Sometimes he'd bring groceries. Sometimes he'd just stay for lunch, talking about everything and nothing while Brianna played or did homework. Shanice was regaining her strength steadily. Color had returned to her face. She moved with more energy. But more than the physical changes, Grant noticed how she laughed more easily now. How the tension that had seemed permanently etched into her shoulders was slowly relaxing. One afternoon, they sat on her small balcony while Brianna played in the park across the street, visible from where they sat. The weather had turned warmer, hinting at the spring that would eventually come. "I talked to LaToya yesterday," Shanice said. "Told her everything that happened. She wants to meet you." "Meet me?" Grant felt suddenly nervous. "Don't look so worried. She's not going to interrogate you. Much." "That's not reassuring." Shanice laughed. "LaToya is protective. She watched me struggle for 2 years. She's thrilled about the job and the apartment, but she wants to make sure your intentions are good." "My intentions?" Grant repeated. "What does that mean?" Shanice gave him a long look. "Come on, Grant. You're a smart man. You must realize that this situation is unusual. Rich man swoops in to save struggling single mother and her daughter. People might wonder what you're getting out of it." Grant felt heat rise in his face. "I'm not. I didn't help you expecting anything. I know that. You've been nothing but respectful. But other people don't know you like I do." "Like you do," Grant echoed. The phrase felt significant. "I've gotten to know you over the past couple weeks," Shanice said. "I see who you are. You're kind and generous and surprisingly funny. You're patient with Brianna and you don't treat me like I'm fragile or helpless. But Latoya has only heard about you. She wants to see for herself. Okay, Grant said. I'll meet Latoya. When? How about dinner this Saturday? My place. I'll cook. You don't have to cook. I can bring food. Grant, I'm perfectly capable of making dinner, and I want to. Let me do this. There was something in her tone that made Grant realize this was important to her. Being able to provide, to host, to show that she was capable. Okay. But I'm bringing dessert. Deal. Saturday arrived with surprising nervousness on Grant's part. He showed up at Shanice's apartment with an expensive chocolate cake from the best bakery in the city, feeling ridiculously anxious about meeting her best friend. Latoya turned out to be a tall woman with an infectious laugh and sharp, observant eyes. She hugged Shanice warmly, gave Brianna a high five, and then turned to Grant with an appraising look. So you're the mysterious benefactor, she said. I'm Grant, he said, offering his hand. She shook it firmly. Latoya. Shanice's friend and unofficial life advisor. Let's talk. She steered him toward the balcony while Shanice finished cooking. Grant felt like he was being interviewed for a position which, in a way, he supposed he was. Shanice told me what you've done for her, Latoya said. It's impressive. But I need to know, what happens when you get bored? When helping them stops being interesting? The question was blunt, almost offensive. But Grant could see the worry beneath it. Latoya had watched Shanice struggle. She wanted to protect her friend from more hurt. I'm not going anywhere, Grant said. And I'm not doing this because I'm bored. I care about Shanice and Brianna. They've become important to me. Important how? Like family, Grant said simply. Latoya studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Okay, I believe you. But if you hurt them, I know where you live and I have access to medical supplies that could make you very uncomfortable. Grant couldn't help but laugh. Noted. Dinner was wonderful. Shanice had made roasted chicken with vegetables, a simple meal but perfectly prepared. They ate and talked and laughed. Latoya told embarrassing stories about Shanice from nursing school. Brianna performed a dance she'd learned in gym class. Grant felt more relaxed and happy than he could remember feeling in years. After Latoya left and Brianna was in bed, Grant helped Shanice clean up the kitchen. I like Latoya, he said. Even though she threatened me. Shanice laughed. She threatened you? When? On the balcony. Said something about medical supplies. That sounds like her. Did you pass the test? I think so. At least I'm still alive. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Grant knew he should leave, but he found reasons to linger. Helping Shanice rearrange furniture that didn't need rearranging. Checking that a window lock was secure. Finally, Shanice walked him to the door. They stood there awkwardly, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Thank you for coming tonight, Shanice said. And for bringing that amazing cake. Brianna's going to want cake for breakfast now. Tell her I support that decision, Grant said. Shanice smiled. I will not tell her that. You start work on Monday, Grant said. Are you nervous? Terrified, Shanice admitted. But excited too. I can't wait to feel productive again. You're going to be great. Rebecca has your workspace all set up. And I'll be right down the hall if you need anything. Thank you, Grant. For everything. I don't say it enough, but you changed our lives. I'll never forget that. Grant wanted to say that she'd changed his life too. That his empty house and carefully controlled existence had felt hollow until a little girl in pink pajamas had asked him for help. But the words stuck in his throat. Instead he said, get some rest. Big day on Monday. He drove home thinking about Shanice's smile, the warmth in her eyes, the way she'd looked standing in her kitchen, cooking for people she cared about. He thought about how natural it had felt, sitting at her table, being part of her evening. He was in trouble, Grant realized. He'd fallen for Shanice Thompson. Somewhere between that frozen morning and chocolate cake on a Saturday night, she'd become more than a person he'd helped. She'd become someone he couldn't imagine not knowing. The question was, what was he going to do about it? Monday morning arrived bright and clear. Grant reached his office early, checking and rechecking the workspace Rebecca had prepared for Shanice. The desk was positioned near a window with good natural light. A new computer sat waiting, already set up with the accounting software they used. A small plant added a touch of green to the space. You've checked that desk 3 times? Rebecca said from behind him. It's perfect. Grant turned, startled. His assistant stood with her arms crossed, an amused expression on her face. I'm just making sure everything is ready, Grant said. This wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that Shanice Thompson is beautiful, kind, and you've been spending all your free time with her for the past 2 weeks. Rebecca. I'm not judging. I think it's great. You've been married to this company since you started it. It's nice to see you care about something else. I care about helping her succeed in her job, Grant said stiffly. Rebecca's smile widened. Keep telling yourself that. She walked away, leaving Grant to wonder if he was that transparent. But he didn't have time to dwell on it because Shanice arrived right at 8 o'clock, dressed in a professional blue blazer and skirt, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She looked nervous but determined. Good morning, Grant said. Ready for your first day? As ready as I'll ever be, Shanice said. He showed her to her desk, introduced her to the team members she'd be working with, and went over the basic structure of the company. Shanice listened intently, asking smart questions and taking notes. Your first project is relatively simple, Grant explained. We have a client, a manufacturing company, that needs help organizing their quarterly reports. Rebecca will go over the details with you. Take your time, ask questions, and don't worry about making mistakes. Everyone does when they're learning. Shanice nodded, but Grant could see the tension in her shoulders. She wanted to prove herself, to show that his faith in her wasn't misplaced. Throughout the day, Grant found himself checking on her more often than necessary. Each time, he found her focused on her work, her fingers flying across the keyboard with growing confidence. By late afternoon, she'd completed the initial analysis of the manufacturing company's reports and identified several areas where they could improve efficiency. Rebecca reviewed Shanice's work and came to Grant's office with raised eyebrows. She's good. Really good. I expected it to take her at least a week to get up to speed, but she's already working at the level of someone who's been here for months. Grant felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with business metrics. I knew she would be. At the end of the day, Grant found Shanice still at her desk, reviewing her work one more time. It's past 5, he said gently. You can go home. Shanice looked up, surprised. Oh, I didn't realize what time it was. I was just making sure everything was correct. It is. Rebecca told me you did excellent work today. Shanice's face lit up with a smile that made Grant's heart skip. Really? She said that. She did. You impressed everyone. I was so nervous, Shanice admitted. I kept thinking I'd forgotten everything. But once I started working, it all came back. Felt good. Really good. Ready to go home to Brianna? Shanice gathered her things. They walked to the parking garage together, and Grant realized he didn't want the day to end. How about we pick up Brianna from the after-school program together? He suggested. Then we could grab dinner somewhere. Shanice hesitated. Grant, you don't have to. I want to. Unless you'd rather I didn't? No, I'd like that. Brianna would love it too. They picked up Brianna, who chattered excitedly about her day at school. At dinner, a casual restaurant with good burgers and cheerful atmosphere, Shanice told her daughter about her first day at work. Mama did really good, Grant added. Everyone was impressed. Brianna beamed. I knew you would be great, Mama. How about you, sweetie? Shanice asked. How was your day? Brianna launched into a detailed description of a game they'd played at recess and a picture she'd painted in art class. Grant found himself content just listening, watching the easy affection between mother and daughter. After dinner, Grant drove them home. As Shanice and Brianna climbed out of the car, Brianna turned back. Grant, are you coming to my soccer game on Saturday? Please? Grant looked at Shanice, who smiled and nodded. If you want to come, you're welcome. I'd love to, Grant said. And he meant it. The weeks that followed established a new normal. Shanice continued to excel at work, quickly becoming one of the most reliable members of the team. Grant tried to maintain professional distance during office hours, but it was difficult. He found himself gravitating toward her desk, asking her opinion on projects, enjoying the quick intelligence in her eyes. Outside of work, the boundaries were even more blurred. Grant went to Brianna's soccer game and found himself cheering loudly when she scored her first goal. He helped with homework on evenings when Shanice had to work late. He joined them for Sunday dinners that became a weekly tradition. One evening, about a month after Shanice started working, Grant brought over pizza and found her sitting at her kitchen table surrounded by bills and statements. What's all this? He asked. Just organizing my finances, Shanice said. I want to make a plan to pay off my debts. With my new salary, I can actually start making real progress. Grant set down the pizza and sat across from her. May I look? Shanice hesitated, then slid the papers toward him. Grant reviewed them carefully. Credit card balances from medical expenses, A personal loan from when she tried to save her house, smaller debts for utilities and rent that had gone unpaid during the worst times. This is manageable, Grant said. If you focus on the high-interest credit cards first and make minimum payments on everything else, you could have this cleared in about 3 years. 3 years, Shanice repeated. That seems so far away. But it's not forever. And you're already making progress. Look at what you've accomplished in just a month. Shanice met his eyes. I couldn't have done any of it without you. Yes, you could have, Grant said firmly. Maybe it would have taken longer. Maybe the path would have been harder. But you would have found a way. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I don't feel strong most of the time. I feel like I'm barely keeping it together. That's what strength is, Grant said. Keeping going even when you're scared. Even when everything feels impossible. They worked together on a budget and payment plan. Grant explained strategies for managing debt and building savings. Shanice asked questions and took notes, her mind absorbing the information quickly. You could do this professionally, Grant observed. Financial counseling. Helping other people in situations like yours. Maybe someday, Shanice said. Right now, I'm just trying to keep my own head above water. Brianna appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Is Grant staying for dinner? I brought pizza, Grant said. So yes, if your mom says it's okay. Shanice smiled. Of course it's okay. Let's eat before the pizza gets cold. They moved to the living room, eating off paper plates while Brianna told them about a project she was working on at school about different countries. She'd chosen Nigeria. Why Nigeria? Grant asked. Because that's where Mama's grandparents came from, Brianna said. Before they came to America. Grant looked at Shanice with interest. I didn't know that. My grandmother used to tell me stories, Shanice said. About growing up in Lagos, about the food and the music and the family gatherings. She came here when she was young, looking for better opportunities. She always said America gave her chances she wouldn't have had otherwise, but she never forgot where she came from. She sounds remarkable, Grant said. She was. She passed away when I was in college. She would have loved Brianna. Grant watched the wistfulness on Shanice's face and felt the loss she carried. Not just of her husband, but of all the family connections that had been severed by time and circumstance. After dinner, Brianna convinced them to play a board game. Then another game. Then one more. By the time Grant glanced at his watch, it was nearly 10 o'clock. I should go, he said reluctantly. You say that every time, Brianna pointed out. But you always stay longer. Brianna, Shanice said gently. Grant has his own home to get to. But he's always here anyway, Brianna said with the blunt honesty of children. Why doesn't he just move in? An awkward silence fell. Grant felt heat rising in his face. Shanice looked equally flustered. That's not how it works, baby, Shanice said. Grant is our friend. Friends don't just move in together. Why not? Brianna persisted. You're together all the time. He comes to my soccer games. We eat dinner together. We watch movies. Isn't that what families do? Grant's heart clenched. Out of the mouths of children came truth he wasn't ready to face. They did act like a family. But they weren't. Not really. He was the helpful friend, the generous boss. Nothing more. Except he wanted to be more. The realization hit him with sudden clarity. He wanted to be Brianna's father figure. He wanted to be Shanice's partner. He wanted this small, bright apartment to be a place where he belonged, not just visited. But Shanice had loved her husband deeply. She'd only been widowed for 2 years. She was just getting back on her feet. The last thing she needed was pressure from him. Brianna makes a good point, Grant said lightly. We do spend a lot of time together. But your mom is right. Friends have their own spaces. It's important. Brianna looked dissatisfied but didn't argue further. Grant helped clean up the game pieces, said his goodbyes and left. In his car, he sat for a moment before starting the engine. Brianna's question echoed in his mind. Why didn't he just move in? Because it would be inappropriate. Because Shanice might feel obligated to say yes. Because rushing things could ruin everything. But he was tired of going home to an empty house. Tired of being alone. His phone buzzed. A text from Shanice. Sorry about Brianna's question. She doesn't understand boundaries yet. Grant typed back, it's okay. She's perceptive. We do spend a lot of time together. Pause. Then, is that a problem? Grant stared at the question. Was it a problem? Only in the sense that it was making him want things he couldn't have. Not a problem, he typed. I like spending time with you both. We like it too, Shanice replied. See you tomorrow at work. Grant drove home, but his mind stayed in that apartment with Shanice and Brianna. with the life he wanted but wasn't sure he had the right to pursue. The next morning at work, things felt slightly awkward. Shanice was professional and focused, but Grant caught her glancing at him when she thought he wasn't looking. He did the same, watching her work, admiring the way she approached problems methodically. At lunch, Trevor stopped by Grant's office. Trevor Lewis had been Grant's business partner for 5 years, a steady presence and trusted friend. "Got a minute?" Trevor asked. "Always. What's up?" Trevor closed the door and sat down. "I'm going to ask you something as a friend, not a business partner. What's going on with you and Shanice Thompson?" Grant's defenses went up immediately. "Nothing. Why?" "Grant, come on. I've known you long enough to see when something's different. You're distracted. You leave early. You check your phone constantly. And the way you look at her." "The way I look at her? Like she's the only person in the room," Trevor said bluntly. "Look, I'm not criticizing. Shanice seems like a great person. But you're her boss. That's complicated." Grant dropped his head into his hands. I know it's complicated. I didn't plan this. Does she feel the same way? I don't know. Maybe. But she's vulnerable right now. She's rebuilding her life. The last thing I want to do is take advantage of that." Trevor was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something about my wife?" Grant looked up. "Nicole?" "Yeah. When we met, she was working as a waitress. I was already successful, had money, had this whole life built up. She thought I was out of her league. I thought she wouldn't want someone as boring as me. We danced around each other for months before I finally got the courage to ask her out." "I didn't know that," Grant said. "We don't really talk about it much. But my point is, different circumstances don't mean incompatible people. Nicole and I work because we respect each other, because we're honest about what we want and what we need. If you have feelings for Shanice, tell her. Let her decide if she's interested. Don't make the decision for her." Grant absorbed this advice. What if it ruins everything? The friendship, the job, all of it? What if it doesn't? Trevor countered. What if you're both wanting the same thing but too scared to admit it? After Trevor left, Grant sat at his desk, thinking. He'd never been one to take emotional risks. He was careful, controlled, measured. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to take a leap. That evening, he went to Shanice's apartment as usual. But instead of settling in for the evening, he asked if they could talk after Brianna went to bed. Shanice agreed, curiosity and something like nervousness in her eyes. When Brianna was finally asleep, Grant and Shanice sat on her small balcony. The spring night was warm, stars visible above the city lights. "What did you want to talk about?" Shanice asked. Grant took a deep breath. "What this is between us. Because Brianna asked a question last night that I can't stop thinking about." Shanice waited, not making this easier for him. "I've developed feelings for you," Grant said, the words coming out in a rush. "Real, genuine feelings. I look forward to seeing you every day. I think about you when we're apart. When I'm with you and Brianna, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I know this is complicated because I'm your boss and you've been through so much and you might not feel the same way, but I had to tell you. I had to be honest." He forced himself to meet her eyes, to face whatever reaction she might have. What he saw there made his heart skip. Hope, fear, and something that looked like joy. "Grant," Shanice said softly. "I feel the same way." Grant's heart soared, but before he could respond, Shanice held up a hand. "Wait. Let me finish. I have feelings for you too. But I'm scared. Not of you," she added quickly. "Of what this means. I loved James with everything I had. When he died, I thought that part of my life was over. I focused on Brianna and survival. I didn't think I'd ever want to open my heart again." "I understand," Grant said quietly. "Do you?" Shanice's voice was gentle but serious. "You've never lost someone you built your whole life with. You've never had to explain to your 7-year-old daughter that daddy isn't coming home. You've never felt like your heart was physically torn out of your chest." Grant shook his head. "No. I haven't experienced that kind of loss." "I'm not saying this to push you away," Shanice continued. "I'm saying it because if we do this, if we try to be something more than friends, you need to understand that I come with history. With grief that doesn't just disappear because I have feelings for someone new. With a daughter who might have complicated emotions about me dating again. It won't be simple." "Nothing worth having is simple," Grant said. "And I'm not asking you to forget James or stop grieving. I'm just asking for a chance. To see where this could go. At whatever pace feels right for you." Shanice studied him in the darkness. "You really mean that?" "Every word." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay, let's try. But slowly. And we need to be careful about Brianna. I don't want to confuse her or make her think you're replacing her father. I would never try to replace James, Grant said. He'll always be her father. I just hope that maybe there's room in her life for me too. Shanice smiled and Grant saw tears glinting in her eyes. There's definitely room. They talked late into the night, establishing what this new phase would look like. They'd keep things professional at work. They'd be honest with Brianna at an age-appropriate level. They'd take time to really get to know each other, not just as friends but as potential partners. When Grant finally left close to midnight, Shanice walked him to the door. They stood there awkwardly, both aware that something had shifted between them. "Can I kiss you?" Grant asked, his heart pounding. Shanice's smile was answer enough. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, sweet. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "Good night, Grant," Shanice whispered. "Good night." Grant drove home feeling lighter than he had in years. The empty house didn't seem quite so empty anymore. He had something to look forward to now. Someone who mattered. The next morning at work, maintaining professional distance was harder than Grant expected. He wanted to stop by Shanice's desk to talk about everything except work. But he kept himself busy, trusting that they'd have time together later. At lunch, Rebecca appeared in his doorway with a knowing look. "So something happened," she said. "What makes you say that? Because you've been smiling at your computer screen for the past hour? And you're actually humming. I've worked for you for 3 years and I've never heard you hum." Grant couldn't help but laugh. "Am I that obvious?" "Only to someone who knows you. The rest of the office just thinks you're in a good mood. Which, to be fair, you are. I talked to Shanice last night. We're going to try dating." Rebecca's face broke into a genuine smile. "I'm happy for you, Grant. You deserve this." "Thanks. We're keeping it quiet for now, especially at work." "Smart. Though people will figure it out eventually. You're not as subtle as you think when you look at her." Grant made a mental note to work on his subtlety. That evening, he went to Shanice's apartment for their usual dinner. Brianna immediately sensed something different. "You're being weird," she announced, looking between Grant and her mother. "Why are you both smiling so much?" Shanice and Grant exchanged glances. They'd agreed to be honest with Brianna, but finding the right words was challenging. "Brianna, come sit down for a minute," Shanice said. "We want to talk to you about something." Brianna climbed onto the couch, looking curious and slightly worried. Grant sat in the chair across from them, letting Shanice take the lead. "You know Grant has been spending a lot of time with us," Shanice began. "Yeah. Because we're friends." "Right. Well, sometimes when adults are friends for a while, they start to have feelings for each other. Special feelings." Brianna's eyes widened. "Like boyfriend and girlfriend feelings?" "Exactly like that," Shanice confirmed. "Grant and I care about each other very much. And we wanted you to know that we're going to start dating. Do you know what that means?" Brianna nodded slowly. "It means you like each other. And you go on dates. Madison's mom has a boyfriend and they go to movies and stuff." "That's right. But this doesn't change how much I love you or how important you are to me. You're always going to be my #1 priority. And I'm not trying to replace your dad," Grant added quietly. "I know you had an amazing father who loved you very much. I just hope that maybe there's room in your life for me too." Brianna considered this seriously. Then she said, "Are you going to get married?" Grant felt his face heat up. Shanice laughed nervously. "Sweetie, we're just starting to date. Marriage is way in the future if it happens at all. Right now, we're just spending time together and seeing how things go." "But you like him a lot, right, Mama?" "Yes, I do." "And Grant, you like Mama?" "Very much," Grant said. Brianna smiled. "Good. 'Cause I like you too. And Mama has been happy since you started coming around. She sings when she makes breakfast now. She didn't used to do that." Shanice pulled her daughter into a hug. "You're okay with this?" "Yeah." "Can Grant still help me with my homework?" "Of course," Grant said. "And come to my soccer games?" "Definitely." "Okay then. I'm okay with it." Brianna paused. "Does this mean we're going to be a family?" Grant and Shanice looked at each other. That word again, family. "We're already a kind of family," Shanice said carefully. "People who care about each other and spend time together. But it takes time to build those relationships. We're going to take things slow and see how everyone feels as we go." "Okay." Brianna nodded, satisfied with this answer. She jumped up from the couch. "Can I tell Madison? She's going to be so excited." "You can tell Madison," Shanice agreed. "But remember, this is our business. We're telling you because you're important to us, not because we want everyone to know." After Brianna ran off to call her friend, Grant moved to sit beside Shanice on the couch. That went better than I expected, he said. She's adaptable. And she's already grown attached to you. I think she's been hoping for this. Smart kid. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Shanice said, I should probably introduce you to my friend LaToya properly. As my boyfriend, not just as the mysterious benefactor. Boyfriend, Grant repeated, testing the word. I like the sound of that. Me too, Shanice admitted. Over the next few weeks, Grant was formally introduced into Shanice's social circle. LaToya was predictably protective at first but warmed up when she saw how Grant and Shanice interacted. Grant met Shanice's other friends from her old neighborhood, people who had helped her survive the hardest times. In turn, Grant introduced Shanice to Trevor and his wife Nicole. The four of them went out to dinner, and Grant watched anxiously as the women talked. Nicole was warm and friendly, immediately putting Shanice at ease. I like her, Nicole told Grant later when Shanice was in the bathroom. She's genuine. Don't mess this up. I'm trying not to, Grant said. Trevor clapped him on the shoulder. You're doing fine. I haven't seen you this relaxed in years. The following weekend, Grant's sister Amy called. He'd been putting off telling her about Shanice, unsure how she'd react. So when are you coming to Boston for my show? Amy asked. Next month, right? I have it on my calendar. Good. And I meant what I said about bringing a date. In fact, I insist. You never bring anyone to these things. Grant took a breath. Actually, I'd like to bring someone. Her name is Shanice. She works for my company. There was a pause. You're dating someone you work with? It's more complicated than that. I met her when she was in crisis. I helped her. Then I hired her because she's talented. And then we developed feelings for each other. Grant, that sounds like a romantic comedy plot. Are you serious? Completely serious. She's amazing, Amy. And she has a daughter. Brianna. She's 7. Another pause. You're dating a woman with a kid? Yes. Is that a problem? No, I'm just surprised. You've never been the dating type, let alone the instant family type. People change, Grant said. Or maybe I just finally met the right people. Amy was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm happy for you, Grant. Really? I want to meet her. Bring her to Boston. I'll arrange accommodations. She might not be able to take the time off work. Grant, you're her boss. Give her the time off. And make it a weekend trip. You both could probably use a break from routine. After they hung up, Grant thought about Amy's suggestion. A weekend away in Boston could be good for him and Shanice. But was it too soon? They'd only been officially dating for a few weeks. That evening he brought it up with Shanice. My sister invited us to her gallery opening in Boston next month. She wants to meet you. Shanice looked surprised. You told your sister about me? Of course. You're important to me. And Amy suggested we make it a weekend trip. There's a lot to see in Boston. We could do touristy things, eat good food, actually relax. That sounds wonderful, Shanice said. But what about Brianna? I thought maybe she could stay with LaToya? If LaToya's willing. We'd only be gone 2 nights. Shanice bit her lip, considering. I've never left her for that long. Not since James died. You don't have to decide right now. Think about it. A few days later, Shanice told him she'd talked to LaToya, who had enthusiastically agreed to watch Brianna. She says I need a break. And that you and I need time alone together without a 7-year-old chaperone. Grant laughed. LaToya's not wrong. They made plans for the Boston trip. Grant arranged flights and a hotel, insisting on covering the expenses despite Shanice's protests. This is a gift, he said firmly. Let me do this for you. In the weeks leading up to the trip, Grant found himself falling more deeply for Shanice with each passing day. He loved the way she laughed at his terrible jokes. The way she pushed back when she disagreed with him at work. The way she mothered Brianna with patience and love. The way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't paying attention. One evening, about a month into their relationship, they were on her balcony after Brianna had gone to bed. Shanice was quiet, lost in thought. What are you thinking about? Grant asked. James, she said honestly. His birthday would have been this week. He would have been 36. Grant felt a pang of something that wasn't quite jealousy. He'd known this would be part of their relationship, these moments when Shanice's grief rose to the surface. Tell me about him, Grant said. What was he like? Shanice smiled, though tears glistened in her eyes. He was funny. Really funny. He could make me laugh even when I was furious with him. He loved Brianna so much. The day she was born he cried. just stood there in the delivery room with tears running down his face saying, we made a person, over and over. Grant smiled at the image. He worked in construction. He was good with his hands, could fix anything. Our house was always full of his projects. Half-finished repairs, furniture he was building. He drove me crazy sometimes, but I loved that about him. He wasn't afraid to try things. He sounds like he was a great guy, Grant said. He was. Not perfect. We fought sometimes like all couples. But we always made up. We had plans, you know? We were going to have 2 more kids. Buy a bigger house. Take Brianna to Disney World when she got older. And then he got sick and all those plans just vanished. Grant reached over and took her hand. I'm sorry you lost him. I'm sorry Brianna lost her father. And I want you to know that talking about him doesn't bother me. He was part of your life, a huge part. I don't expect you to pretend he didn't exist. Shanice squeezed his hand. Thank you for understanding. Some people get uncomfortable when I mention him. I'm not some people, Grant said. And James will always be Brianna's father. I'm just grateful you're willing to let me be part of your life now. They sat together in comfortable silence, hands linked, looking at the stars. Grant thought about the different kinds of love that could exist in one life. Shanice had loved James completely. But that didn't mean she couldn't love again. Love didn't run out. It just changed, adapted, found new forms. Inside the apartment, Brianna called out. They went in to find her standing in her bedroom doorway looking sleepy. I had a bad dream, she said. Shanice knelt down to hug her. Want to tell me about it? I dreamed that everyone went away and I was alone. Grant's heart broke a little. This child carried fear like a weight, worry that the people she loved would disappear like her father had. We're not going anywhere, baby, Shanice promised. I'm right here. I'll always be right here. Brianna looked at Grant. Will you stay too? Even when Mama and I are being annoying? Grant crouched down to her level. Brianna, you and your mom are never annoying. And yes, I'm staying. For as long as you'll have me. Forever. Brianna asked. It was too soon to promise forever. But looking at this little girl's hopeful face, Grant found himself saying, I hope so. Shanice got Brianna settled back in bed and Grant prepared to leave. At the door, Shanice hugged him tightly. Thank you, she whispered. For being patient with us. For understanding that we're a package deal, grief and all. Best package I've ever encountered, Grant said and meant it. As he drove home, Grant thought about Brianna's question. Forever. He wanted that. Wanted to be part of their lives permanently. But he also understood that trust took time, especially for people who had lost so much. He'd wait. He'd prove himself. And hopefully one day forever wouldn't be just a possibility. It would be their reality. The morning of the Boston trip arrived with unexpected nervousness from Shanice. Grant picked her up early, finding her double-checking her small suitcase for the 3rd time while Brianna bounced around the apartment. Mama, you packed your toothbrush already? Brianna said. I saw you put it in there. I know, baby. I just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. You're going to be gone for 2 days, not 2 months, LaToya said from the kitchen where she was making breakfast. She'd come over early to spend time with Brianna before Shanice left. I've never left her this long, Shanice said quietly to Grant. We don't have to go, Grant said. We can cancel. No, I want to go. I'm just being silly. Brianna ran over and hugged her mother. Mama, I'm going to be fine. LaToya and I are going to have so much fun. We're going to make cookies and watch movies and she promised to take me to the park. That's right, LaToya confirmed. We've got this covered. You two go have a good time. After tearful goodbyes from Brianna and promises to call every day, Grant and Shanice headed to the airport. On the plane, Shanice gripped the armrest during takeoff. Not a fan of flying? Grant asked. Haven't been on a plane since James and I went to Florida for our anniversary 5 years ago, Shanice said. I forgot how much I dislike takeoff. Grant covered her hand with his. It's the safest part. Once we're in the air, it's smooth sailing. Shanice relaxed as the plane leveled out. She looked out the window at the clouds below. It's beautiful up here. I forgot. They landed in Boston mid-morning. Grant had rented a car and as he drove them into the city, he pointed out landmarks. Shanice pressed her face to the window like a child, taking everything in. When did you last take a vacation? Grant asked. Define vacation, Shanice said. If you mean a real trip where I wasn't working or worrying about money, probably 6 years ago. Before James got sick. Grant felt a familiar ache in his chest. 6 years. This brilliant, hard-working woman hadn't had a break in 6 years. He'd booked them a hotel in the historic part of the city, a beautiful old building that had been converted to a boutique hotel. Their rooms were on the same floor but separate, respecting the pace they'd agreed to set for their relationship. "This is gorgeous," Shanice said, looking around her room. "Grant, this must have cost a fortune." "Don't worry about the cost. Just enjoy it." They spent the afternoon exploring the city. They walked the Freedom Trail, visited historical sites, stopped for lunch at a restaurant overlooking the harbor. Shanice took photos constantly, saying she wanted to show Brianna everything. At dinner that evening, a casual Italian place Grant knew, they talked about everything and nothing. Work gossip, Brianna's upcoming school play, movies they wanted to see. "This is nice," Shanice said. "Being just us. No responsibilities for a while." "Just us," Grant repeated. "I like the sound of that." After dinner they walked along the harbor. The spring evening was cool but pleasant. Other couples strolled past, hand in hand. Grant reached for Shanice's hand and she laced her fingers through his. "I'm glad I came," Shanice said. "I almost canceled about 5 times. "Why?" "Fear mostly. Fear of leaving Brianna. Fear of getting too comfortable with you. Fear of being happy again." Grant stopped walking and turned to face her. "Why would being happy scare you?" "Because last time I was this happy it all fell apart," Shanice said simply. "James and I were so happy. We had everything planned out. And then cancer took it all away. So some part of me is terrified that if I let myself be happy again, something bad will happen." "I can't promise that nothing bad will ever happen," Grant said. "Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise that I'm going to do everything I can to make you happy for as long as you'll let me." Shanice stepped closer to him. "You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is simple. Maybe we complicate things by worrying too much about the future instead of enjoying the present." "When did you become so wise?" Shanice teased. "I learned from you," Grant said. "You taught me that strength isn't about having everything under control. It's about adapting when things fall apart. About finding hope even in the hardest times." They kissed there on the harbor walk, with the lights of Boston reflecting in the water and the sound of boats creaking at their moorings. It was the kind of moment that felt like it belonged in a movie, too perfect to be real. But it was real and that made it better than any movie. The next day was Amy's gallery opening. Grant had never seen his sister so nervous. The gallery was in a trendy neighborhood, its white walls covered with Amy's paintings. She'd always been talented, but these pieces showed growth and maturity Grant hadn't seen in her earlier work. "They're beautiful," Shanice said, studying a large canvas that depicted a city street in vibrant colors. Amy appeared beside them, looking relieved. "You really think so?" "Absolutely. You have a gift for capturing light." Amy smiled. "Thank you. And you must be Shanice. Grant talks about you constantly." "He does." Shanice glanced at Grant. "Oh yes. Shanice did this amazing thing at work. Shanice made the best lasagna. Shanice taught Brianna to ride a bike. I half expected you to be 10 feet tall based on his descriptions." Grant felt his face heat up. "Amy?" "It's sweet," Amy said. "I've never seen my brother so smitten." Other guests began arriving and Amy had to play host. Grant and Shanice wandered through the gallery looking at each piece. Several people approached them, fellow attendees discussing the art. "Your sister is very talented," an older woman said to Grant. "These paintings have real depth." At the end of the evening, after most guests had left, Amy joined them with 3 glasses of champagne. "To successful openings," she said, raising her glass. They toasted, and Amy studied Shanice with open curiosity. "So Grant tells me you work for his company," Amy said. "I do. I'm an accountant." "And you have a daughter?" "Brianna. She's 7. Amy nodded. Grant mentioned her too. "He's quite taken with her." "She's pretty taken with him," Shanice said. "He's been wonderful with her." "My brother wasn't always great with emotions," Amy said. "Growing up he was all business all the time. Our parents loved that about him. I was the disappointment who wanted to paint instead of pursuing something practical." "I don't think you're a disappointment," Grant said quietly. Amy looked at him with surprise. "You don't?" "Never did. I was jealous actually. You knew what you wanted and you went for it. I spent so long trying to be what everyone else wanted that I forgot to figure out what I wanted." "And what do you want now?" Amy asked. Grant looked at Shanice. "I want to be happy. I want to build something real with someone who matters. I want to stop measuring success in dollars and start measuring it in moments that matter." Amy's eyes softened. "You really have changed. Shanice, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. My brother needed someone like you." That night, back at the hotel, Grant walked Shanice to her room. They'd had wine with dinner and more champagne at the opening, and Shanice was pleasantly relaxed. "Your sister is great," she said, leaning against her door frame. "I like her. She likes you too. I could tell." "Grant?" Shanice's voice turned serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything. Do you ever worry that this is moving too fast? That we're building something that might not last?" Grant thought about his answer carefully. "Sometimes. But then I remember that you can't time love. Comes when it comes. And I'd rather risk everything for something real than play it safe and end up with nothing." "You're right," Shanice said. "And I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of holding back because of what might happen. James wouldn't want me to live like that." "What would he want for you?" "Happiness. He always said that more than anything he wanted me to be happy. Even at the end when he was so sick, he made me promise I wouldn't stop living just because he was gone." "He sounds like he loved you very much." "He did. And I think he'd like you. You're different from him but in good ways. He was spontaneous and adventurous. You're thoughtful and steady. But you both have the same kind heart." They kissed goodnight, a long, sweet kiss that left Grant's head spinning. As he walked to his own room, he felt more certain than ever that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The flight home the next day was relaxed. Shanice dozed against his shoulder for part of the journey, and Grant found himself thinking about the future. About whether there was a future where this became permanent. When they picked up Brianna from LaToya's apartment, the little girl launched herself at her mother with squeals of joy. "Mama, I missed you so much. We made cookies and LaToya taught me to braid hair and we watched 3 movies. 3 movies? Shanice laughed. "Someone had a good weekend." "The best weekend," Brianna confirmed. Then she turned to Grant. "Did you have fun in Boston?" "I did. Your mom and I saw some amazing art and ate great food." "Did you bring me anything?" "Brianna," Shanice said warningly. But Grant was already pulling a small wrapped package from his bag. "I might have found a little something in a museum gift shop." Brianna opened it to find a book about art and a set of colored pencils. Her face lit up. "Thank you, Grant. Can we draw together?" "Anytime you want." Over the next few weeks, their relationship deepened. Grant became a constant presence in Shanice and Brianna's lives. He attended Brianna's school play, where she had 3 lines as a flower in the spring pageant. He helped Shanice repaint her kitchen, a project that ended with more paint on them than on the walls. He introduced them to his favorite hiking trail, and they spent a Sunday afternoon exploring nature together. At work, Shanice continued to excel. She'd become one of the team leaders, mentoring newer employees and taking on complex projects. Grant watched her confidence grow, her shoulders straightening a little more each day as she realized her worth. One evening, about 2 months after they'd started dating, Trevor and Nicole invited them over for dinner. It was a warm May evening and they ate on Trevor's back patio. "I have to say, you two are disgustingly cute together," Nicole said, watching Grant and Shanice interact. "We are not," Shanice protested, laughing. "You really are," Trevor agreed. Grant actually smiled in the board meeting yesterday. Smiled. In a board meeting. "The presentation went well," Grant defended himself. "The presentation was boring as usual," Trevor said. "But you smiled anyway because you were thinking about something else. Or someone else." Shanice turned to Grant. "Were you thinking about me in your board meeting?" "Maybe," Grant admitted. Nicole raised her glass. "To new love. May it continue to make board meetings more bearable." They all laughed and toasted. Later, while the men were clearing dishes, Nicole pulled Shanice aside. "Can I tell you something?" Nicole said. "When I met Trevor, I was working 3 jobs too. Waitressing, cleaning houses, anything to make ends meet. I was broke, tired, and convinced I'd never have anything better." "How did you two meet?" Shanice asked. "He came into the restaurant where I worked. We started talking. He asked me out and I almost said no because I thought we were from different worlds. But he convinced me to give him a chance." Nicole smiled at the memory. "Best decision I ever made. Not because of his money or his success but because he saw me. The real me, not just the struggling waitress." "Grant sees me too," Shanice said softly. "I know. That's why I'm telling you this. Don't let fear or pride or anything else keep you from accepting what he's offering. Not just financial help, though that matters. But real partnership. Real love." Shanice felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm trying. It's just hard to trust that it's real." "Give it time," Nicole said. "And in the meantime, let yourself be happy. You deserve it." Driving home that night, Brianna asleep in the back seat, Shanice reached over and took Grant's hand. Thank you, she said. For what? For being patient with me. For understanding that I need to take things slow. For being there for Brianna. For making me believe in possibilities again. You don't have to thank me for any of that, Grant said. Being with you is the easiest thing I've ever done. I have something to tell you, Shanice said, her voice nervous. Something important. Grant glanced at her, concerned. Okay. I love you, Shanice said in a rush. I know it's only been a couple of months and maybe it's too soon to say it, but I can't keep it inside anymore. I love you, Grant Whitmore. Grant pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face her. Say that again. I love you. He cupped her face in his hands. I love you too. I've loved you for weeks, but I was afraid to say it. Afraid it would scare you away. I'm not scared anymore, Shanice said. Well, maybe a little scared. But the good kind of scared. The excited kind. They kissed while Brianna slept peacefully in the back seat, unaware that her mother had just taken a leap of faith that would change all their lives. The weeks following their declarations of love brought a new dimension to their relationship. Grant found himself thinking in terms of we instead of I, considering Shanice and Brianna in every decision he made. One Saturday in early June, Grant woke with an idea. He called Shanice before breakfast. How do you and Brianna feel about spending the day together? I have something I want to show you. Something mysterious? Shanice asked, and he could hear the smile in her voice. You'll see. He picked them up an hour later. Brianna bounced in the back seat, trying to guess where they were going. The zoo? Nope. The beach? Not quite. The moon? Grant laughed. Definitely not the moon. He drove them out of the city to a neighborhood he'd been exploring recently. Tree-lined streets, good schools, parks within walking distance. He pulled up in front of a house with a for sale sign in the yard. Why are we stopping here? Shanice asked. Because I want your opinion on something, Grant said. Come on. The realtor he'd contacted was waiting. The house was a two-story craftsman style with a wide front porch, painted a cheerful blue. Inside, sunlight streamed through large windows. There was a spacious living room, a kitchen with an island for bedrooms upstairs. Brianna ran through the house, exclaiming over every detail. Mama, look, there's a window seat in this bedroom. And the backyard has a swing set. Shanice walked through more slowly, touching the walls, looking out the windows. Grant watched her, trying to read her expression. Grant, she said quietly when they were alone in the kitchen. Why are we looking at this house? Because my house is too big for one person, Grant said. And your apartment, while nice, is small for two. This house could be perfect for all of us. Brianna could have her own room. There'd be space for a home office for you. The backyard is great for a garden. All of us, Shanice repeated. I'm not proposing marriage, Grant said quickly. Not yet. But I'm thinking about the future. About what our life could look like. And I wanted you to be part of that conversation. To see if maybe you could imagine us all living here together. Shanice looked around the kitchen. It's beautiful. But Grant, I can't afford a house like this. We'd own it together. I'd pay more since I earn more, but it would be ours. Both our names on the deed. A real partnership. That's a huge step. I know. And you don't have to decide now. But I wanted you to see it. To think about it. Brianna came running back in. Mama, can we live here? Please? My room could have the window seat and Grant's room could be next to yours, and there's even a room that could be for when LaToya visits. Shanice looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then at Grant's. Let me think about it, she said. Over the next few days, Shanice was quieter than usual. Grant gave her space, not pushing for an answer. But he could see her mind working, considering all the implications. On Wednesday evening, she asked if they could talk after Brianna went to bed. Grant came over, his stomach in knots. They sat on her balcony, the place where they'd had so many important conversations. I've been thinking about the house, Shanice said. And about us. And about what I want for Brianna and for myself. Grant waited, hardly breathing. For 2 years I've been in survival mode. Just trying to get through each day. I had a plan. Work hard, save money, provide for Brianna, eventually claw my way back to stability. It was a long-term plan. 5 years, maybe 10, before I could think about things like owning a home or having a real relationship. But then you showed up, Shanice continued. And you offered me things I thought were years away. A good job. Financial security. A chance to actually live instead of just survive. And now you're offering me a home. A real home. With you. I am, Grant confirmed. It scares me, Shanice admitted. Moving this fast. Relying on you. What if something goes wrong? What if we break up and I lose everything again? We could write up an agreement, Grant suggested. Legal protection for both of us. If things don't work out, you'd keep your share of the house equity. I wouldn't leave you with nothing, Shanice. I'd never do that. I know you wouldn't. That's not really what I'm worried about. Shanice took a deep breath. I'm worried that I'll forget how to be independent. That I'll get comfortable and stop pushing myself. I worked so hard to survive on my own. I don't want to lose that person I became. Grant reached for her hand. You could never lose that strength. It's part of who you are. Living with me wouldn't make you less independent. It would just mean you don't have to fight every battle alone anymore. Shanice was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Okay. Grant's heart leaped. Let's do it. Let's buy the house. Let's build a life together. Shanice smiled, though tears shone in her eyes. I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of holding back. James told me to live to be happy. So that's what I'm going to do. Grant pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. You won't regret this. I promise. I know I won't. They told Brianna the next morning over breakfast. The little girl's scream of joy probably woke the neighbors. We're really moving into the blue house? Really? Really, Shanice confirmed. Grant and I are going to be partners. We're going to share the house and build a life there together. Brianna threw her arms around both of them. This is the best day ever. Can I paint my room purple? We'll see, Shanice laughed. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Grant made an offer on the house, which was quickly accepted. They went through inspections and paperwork. Shanice insisted on contributing what she could to the down payment, wanting to feel like an equal partner. I know you could pay for the whole thing, she said. But this needs to feel like mine too. Like something I earned. Grant understood. They worked out an arrangement that felt fair to both of them. They spent weekends planning the move, discussing paint colors and furniture placement. Brianna drew elaborate designs for her room, each one more colorful than the last. One evening, while they were packing boxes in Shanice's apartment, she pulled out a photo album Grant had never seen before. Wedding photos, baby photos, family pictures. This is James, she said, showing Grant a picture of a handsome man with a bright smile. This was our wedding day. Grant studied the photo. James looked happy, vibrant, alive. Nothing like the sick man Shanice had described caring for in his final months. You looked beautiful, Grant said. I was so young. We both were. 23 and convinced we had everything figured out. Shanice traced the photo with one finger. I want Brianna to have these pictures in the new house. I want her to remember her father. Is that okay? Of course it is, Grant said. James was part of your life. Part of Brianna's life. His photos belong in our home. Our home, Shanice repeated softly. I love the sound of that. The moving day arrived in late June. LaToya came to help, along with Trevor and Nicole. Grant had hired professional movers for the heavy lifting, but there were still dozens of boxes to unpack and organize. This kitchen is amazing, LaToya said, exploring the space. Shanice, you're going to love cooking in here. I can't wait, Shanice admitted. I want to host Thanksgiving this year. Have everyone over for a real family dinner. Family, LaToya said, glancing at Grant. That's what you are now, aren't it? We're getting there, Shanice said. By evening, the main rooms were set up. Brianna's purple room was a priority, and she helped arrange her books and toys with serious concentration. When she was finally satisfied, she threw herself onto her new bed. This is my room. All mine. It's perfect. That night, after everyone had gone home and Brianna was asleep in her purple room, Grant and Shanice stood in the kitchen of their new home. We did it, Shanice said. We did. I can't believe this is real sometimes. 6 months ago I was unconscious on a couch, dying. And now I'm here in this beautiful house with you. Grant wrapped his arms around her from behind. You fought your way here. You survived and rebuilt and took chances. This is just the beginning, Shanice. The beginning of what? Of everything, Grant said. Of the life we're going to build together. They stood there in the quiet kitchen, holding each other, thinking about all the roads that had led them to this moment. A frozen morning when a desperate child had asked a stranger for help. A choice to stop running and start caring. Small decisions that had led to this big, beautiful life. Over the next few weeks, they settled into their new routine. Grant had converted one of the spare bedrooms into a home office for Shanice, setting it up with everything she needed. She worked from home 2 days a week now, an arrangement they'd worked out that gave her flexibility for Brianna's schedule. Brianna thrived in their new neighborhood. She'd made friends with the girl next door, a classmate named Zoe. They rode bikes together, played in the backyard, did homework side by side. One Saturday morning in July, Grant woke to the smell of coffee and voices in the kitchen. He found Shanice and Brianna making pancakes together, a weekend tradition that had started in the tiny apartment and continued in the new house. "Morning," he said, kissing Shanice's cheek. "Morning. Sleep okay?" "Better than okay." Brianna set the table while they cooked. It was such a normal domestic scene. Nothing dramatic or exciting. Just a family having breakfast on a Saturday morning. But to Grant, who'd spent so many years in that empty house, it was everything. After breakfast they worked in the garden. Shanice had decided to grow vegetables and they planted tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. Brianna's job was to water everything, which she took very seriously. "Look, the tomatoes are getting bigger," she exclaimed. "They'll be ready to eat soon," Shanice said. "We can make salsa." "With chips." "Definitely with chips." That evening, after Brianna was in bed, Grant and Shanice sat on their front porch swing, watching fireflies in the yard. "I talked to my therapist today," Shanice said. She'd started seeing a counselor a few months ago, working through her grief and the trauma of those hard years. "How did it go?" "Good. We talked about guilt. About how I sometimes feel guilty for being happy now, like I'm betraying James by moving on." Grant waited, letting her work through her thoughts. "She reminded me that grief and joy can exist at the same time. That loving you doesn't mean I didn't love James. That building this life doesn't erase the life I had before." "Your therapist is wise," Grant said. "She is. And she asked me something interesting. She asked if I thought James would want me to be happy." "What did you say?" "I said yes, absolutely. He made me promise on his deathbed to find joy again. To not let his death be the end of my story." Shanice turned to look at Grant. "I think he'd like you. I think he'd be glad I found someone who treats me and Brianna well. Someone who makes us laugh. Someone who chose to be family when he didn't have to be." Grant felt emotion tighten his throat. "I hope I'm living up to his expectations." "You are," Shanice said firmly. "You absolutely are." They rocked gently on the swing, comfortable in the silence. The fireflies danced their ancient dance, tiny lights in the darkness. Inside the house, in her purple room, Brianna slept peacefully. And on that porch, two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way held hands and watched the stars come out. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days, moments of doubt, challenges to navigate. But they faced them together, and that made all the difference. By late summer, the rhythm of their shared life had become comfortable and familiar. Grant, Shanice, and Brianna had fallen into routines that felt natural. Morning coffee on the porch, Sunday afternoon bike rides, evening walks around the neighborhood. To anyone watching, they looked like any other family. But comfort sometimes brought new challenges. One evening in August, Grant came home from the office to find Shanice staring at her laptop in the kitchen, her expression troubled. Brianna was at a friend's house for a playdate. "Everything okay?" Grant asked, setting down his briefcase. Shanice closed the laptop. "Can we talk?" Those 3 words sent a chill through Grant. Nothing good ever followed. "Can we talk?" They sat at the kitchen table, and Shanice folded her hands in front of her. "I got an email today from someone I used to work with," she said. "Before everything fell apart. She's at a different firm now, and they're looking for a senior accountant. She asked if I'd be interested in interviewing." Grant felt his stomach drop. "And are you interested?" "I don't know," Shanice said honestly. "The salary they're offering is more than I'm making at your company. The position would be a step up in responsibility. But I'm your boss," Grant finished. "And your partner. And applying for another job feels complicated." "Exactly." Shanice met his eyes. "I love working at your company. You've been great, everyone has been supportive. But sometimes I wonder if I'm really earning my success or if people are just being nice because I'm with you." "That's not true," Grant said immediately. "You're one of our best employees. Rebecca says so. Trevor says so. Your performance reviews are excellent." "I know. Logically, I know I'm good at what I do. But there's this voice in my head that says I only got the job because you felt sorry for me. That I wouldn't have been hired if we'd met under normal circumstances." Grant reached across the table for her hand. "Shanice, I hired you because you're talented. I fell in love with you because of who you are. Those are separate things." "Are they though?" Shanice's voice was small. "How do we really know where one ends and the other begins?" Grant didn't have a good answer for that. "I'm not saying I'm going to interview for this other job," Shanice continued. I needed to tell you about it. To be honest about what I'm feeling. I appreciate that, Grant said. And I want you to know that whatever you decide, I support you. If you want to interview, interview. If you want to take another job, take it. Your career is yours. I won't hold you back. What if taking another job changes things between us? Shanice asked. What if it makes things weird? Then we'll figure it out, Grant said. But I don't think it will. I think you'll feel more confident knowing you're succeeding on your own merits. And honestly, maybe it would be good for us to have more separation between work and home. Shanice looked surprised. You mean that? I do. I love working with you, but maybe we've been together too much. Maybe some independence would be healthy. They talked for another hour, working through Shanice's concerns and fears. By the end, she decided to at least take the interview just to see what it would be like. It'll be good practice even if I don't take the job, she said. I haven't interviewed in years. The interview took place the following week. Shanice came home energized and excited. It went really well, she told Grant. They were impressed with my recent work. They asked smart questions. And the position would involve more client interaction, which I'd love. Sounds like it was a good experience, Grant said, trying to keep his voice neutral. The truth was, he didn't want Shanice to leave his company. He'd grown used to seeing her every day at the office, stealing moments to talk between meetings. But he also recognized that holding her back would be selfish. A week later, Shanice got the offer. The salary was 15% higher than what she was currently making. The benefits were comparable. The commute would be about the same. I don't know what to do, she said to LaToya over coffee while Grant watched Brianna at soccer practice. Grant says he supports whatever I choose, but what if he secretly wants me to stay? Have you asked him? LaToya said bluntly. Sort of. Sort of isn't the same as actually asking. Shanice, you and Grant are building a life together. That requires honest communication. Not just about the easy stuff but about the hard stuff too. That evening, after Brianna was in bed, Shanice sat Grant down in their living room. I need you to be completely honest with me, she said. Do you want me to stay at your company? Grant took a deep breath. Part of me does. I like working with you. I like having you close. But that's the selfish part of me talking. The part that loves you wants you to do what's best for your career. And if that means taking this new job, then you should take it. What about us? Shanice asked. Will it change things? Probably, Grant admitted. But not in bad ways. Maybe in good ways. We'll have our own work lives again. We'll have things to talk about at dinner that aren't about projects we're both working on. We'll miss each other during the day, which will make coming home even better. Shanice smiled. You're being very mature about this. I'm trying. Ask me again in a month and I might be less mature. I think I'm going to take it, Shanice said. The job, I mean. Feels like the right move for my career. And you're right, some separation between work and home might be healthy for us. Then take it, Grant said. And congratulations. You earned this. Shanice gave her notice at Grant's company 2 weeks later. Rebecca threw her a small going-away party. Everyone wished her well, and Grant could see how much his team genuinely cared about Shanice. It wasn't just politeness because she was his girlfriend. They really did respect her work. But as supportive as Grant tried to be, he struggled with the change. He missed seeing Shanice at the office. The building felt emptier without her. He found himself texting her more during the day, little messages that she couldn't always respond to immediately because she was busy with her new job. One evening, about 3 weeks after Shanice started her new position, they had their first real argument. Started with something small. Grant had made plans for them to have dinner with Trevor and Nicole without checking with Shanice first. I can't go, Shanice said, looking at her calendar. I have a client meeting that evening. It got scheduled last minute. Can't you reschedule? Grant asked. No, Grant. It's an important client. I can't just reschedule because we have dinner plans I didn't know about. I thought we always did dinner with Trevor and Nicole on the third Friday of the month. We used to. But I have a different job now with different demands. You should have asked me before you committed. Grant felt frustration rising. Fine. I'll go alone. Don't be like that. Like what? I'm just saying I'll go to dinner with my friends since you're too busy. Too busy? Shanice's voice rose. I'm working, Grant. Just like you work. Or does my job not count as important? That's not what I said. It's what you implied. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. Brianna appeared in the doorway looking worried. Why are you fighting? She asked in a small voice. Shanice and Grant immediately softened. We're not fighting, baby, Shanice said. We're just having a disagreement. It sounded like fighting, Brianna said. Are you going to break up? No, Grant said firmly. Absolutely not. Sometimes adults disagree about things. That's normal. It doesn't mean we don't love each other. Brianna didn't look entirely convinced, but she went back to her room. Shanice and Grant looked at each other. We need to figure this out, Shanice said quietly. How to navigate two careers and a relationship and parenting. I know. I'm sorry I didn't check with you before making plans. That wasn't fair. And I'm sorry I snapped at you. I'm just stressed about the new job. I want to prove myself and I'm overcompensating. They talked it through, establishing new rules for scheduling and communication. Grant would check before making plans. Shanice would try to give him a heads up about her schedule at the start of each week. They'd both be more flexible and understanding. But the tensions didn't disappear entirely. Over the next few weeks there were more small conflicts. About household chores, about time management, about who was responsible for what. Nothing major, but enough to create a constant low-level stress. One Sunday morning, Grant woke to find Shanice's side of the bed empty. He found her sitting on the back porch, coffee in hand, staring at the garden they'd planted together. Couldn't sleep? He asked, sitting beside her. I've been thinking, Shanice said. About us. About whether this is working. Grant's heart seized. What do you mean? I mean we're fighting more than we used to. We're both stressed. We're struggling to balance everything. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe living together was a mistake. Don't say that, Grant said, fear making his voice sharp. We're just adjusting. Every relationship goes through rough patches. But what if it's more than a rough patch? Shanice turned to look at him. What if we're not actually compatible in the long term? What if the foundation of our relationship was you saving me, and now that I don't need saving anymore, there's nothing holding us together? That's not true, Grant said desperately. I love you. I love Brianna. You're not a charity case to me, Shanice. You never were. I know you believe that. But sometimes I wonder if I believe it. If I really think I deserve this life, this happiness. Or if part of me is just waiting for it all to fall apart. Grant reached for her hand. Talk to me. Help me understand what you're really feeling. Shanice took a shaky breath. I'm scared, Grant. I'm scared that I'm not good enough for you. That eventually you'll realize you could do better. I'm scared that I'm failing at everything. My job, parenting, this relationship. I'm scared that Brianna is going to be hurt when this all falls apart. And I'm scared that I'm self-sabotaging because I don't know how to let myself be happy. Hey, Grant said gently. Look at me. You are more than good enough. You're brilliant and strong and amazing. And yes, we're struggling right now. That's normal. But we can work through it. If you want to. I do want to, Shanice said, tears streaming down her face. I'm just so tired of being scared all the time. Grant pulled her into his arms. Then let's figure out how to fix this. Together. Maybe we need couples counseling. Maybe we need to adjust our routines again. But we can figure it out if we both want to. I want to, Shanice repeated. I really do. They spent the rest of the morning talking, really talking about their fears and needs and expectations. They made a plan to see a relationship counselor, to work on their communication skills. They also decided to institute a weekly check-in, where they discuss any issues before they built up into bigger problems. That week they had their first counseling session. The therapist, a woman named Dr. Patel, asked them to each describe what they wanted from the relationship. I want partnership, Shanice said. True partnership where we're equals. Where my voice matters as much as Grant's. I want that too, Grant said. But I also want Shanice to feel secure enough in the relationship to tell me when she's struggling, instead of letting it build up until we explode at each other. And what's preventing that? Dr. Patel asked. They both thought about it. Finally, Shanice said, I'm afraid of being a burden. I spent so long being the person who needed help that I don't know how to ask for help even when I need it. And I'm afraid of losing her, Grant admitted. So I try to fix everything instead of just listening. I want to solve problems, but sometimes Shanice just needs me to hear her. Dr. Patel nodded. Those are both very normal fears. And they're both things we can work on. Over the next few weeks, with Dr. Patel's guidance, they worked on their communication. Grant learned to listen without immediately jumping to solutions. Shanice learned to express her needs without feeling guilty. They practiced having difficult conversations without letting them escalate into fights. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and moments of frustration. But slowly things began to improve. One evening in September, Grant came home to find Shanice and Brianna making dinner together. The kitchen was a mess, vegetables everywhere, flour on both their faces. But they were laughing. What's all this? Grant asked. We're making homemade pasta, Brianna announced proudly. From scratch. It's a disaster, Shanice admitted, gesturing at the chaos. But we're having fun. Grant looked at the scene. His girlfriend and her daughter, covered in flour, laughing together in their kitchen. And he realized that this was what he'd been missing in those difficult weeks. Not perfection but joy. Not solving every problem but sharing in the mess of life. Can I help? He asked. Only if you promise not to try to organize our chaos, Shanice said with a smile. Deal. That evening they ate lumpy, imperfect pasta at their kitchen table. Brianna told them about her day at school. Shanice talked about a challenging client she'd won over. Grant shared a funny story from his morning meeting. It was ordinary and imperfect and absolutely wonderful. After Brianna went to bed, Grant and Shanice cleaned the kitchen together. We're going to be okay, aren't it? Shanice said. We are, Grant confirmed. We're figuring it out. I love you, Shanice said. Even when I'm scared. Even when I'm doubting everything. I love you. I love you too, Grant said. And I'm not going anywhere. They stood in their messy kitchen, holding each other, grateful for the chance to work through hard things together. It would have been easier to give up, to decide that their relationship was too complicated. But they'd both learned that the best things in life were usually complicated. They just had to be willing to do the work. October arrived with cool air and changing leaves. The garden Grant, Shanice, and Brianna had tended all summer was finishing its season, the last tomatoes ripening on the vine. They'd made it through the rocky summer and emerged stronger, more sure of each other. Grant had started planning weeks ago. He talked to Brianna first, making sure she was comfortable with what he wanted to do. I want to ask your mom to marry me, he'd said one afternoon when Shanice was at work. But I need to make sure you're okay with that. Brianna's eyes had gone wide. Really? You want to marry Mama? I do. Very much. But that would make me your stepdad. And I want to know how you feel about that. Brianna had thrown her arms around him. I feel happy about it. Will I get to be in the wedding? Absolutely. But first I have to ask your mom. And she might say no. She won't say no, Brianna had said with the confidence of a child who knew her mother well. She loves you. I can tell. So Grant had started planning. He knew Shanice didn't want anything flashy or public. No restaurant proposals, no crowds. Something private and meaningful. He'd thought about the botanical gardens where they'd taken Brianna one Sunday in late summer. There was a rose garden there that Shanice had loved, with paths winding between hundreds of varieties of roses. He'd taught Brianna the names of different flowers that day, and Shanice had taken photos constantly, her face bright with joy. Grant called the gardens and arranged for them to visit on a Saturday afternoon in mid-October. He told Shanice they were taking Brianna for an educational outing. Educational, huh? Shanice had teased. That's code for you want to teach her more about plants. Maybe, Grant admitted. Is that okay? It's perfect. She loves when you teach her things. The day arrived clear and bright, the October sky that perfect shade of blue that only autumn could produce. Grant was nervous, the ring box heavy in his jacket pocket. He'd chosen a simple design, a diamond solitaire on a platinum band. Classic and timeless like Shanice herself. They walked through the gardens, Brianna skipping ahead while Grant and Shanice followed hand in hand. The roses were still blooming, defying the approaching winter. Reds and pinks and yellows and whites, filling the air with their subtle perfume. This is beautiful, Shanice said. I'm so glad we came. Grant's heart pounded. This was it. The moment he'd been planning and dreaming about. Brianna, come here for a second, he called. Brianna came running back and Grant saw the excited glint in her eyes. She knew what was about to happen. Shanice, Grant said, turning to face her fully. Can we talk for a minute? Of course. What's going on? Grant took both her hands in his. 10 months ago I was running on a cold January morning. I had my whole life mapped out, work, success, achievement. I thought I had everything under control. And then a brave little girl stopped me and asked for help. Shanice's eyes were already filling with tears. She glanced at Brianna, who was bouncing on her toes with barely contained excitement. That morning changed everything, Grant continued. You and Brianna came into my life like a force of nature, showing me what really mattered. You taught me that strength isn't about never needing help. It's about surviving when things are impossible. You taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to show up for each other every single day. Grant? Shanice's voice was shaky. I love you, Shanice Thompson. I love your strength, your determination, your brilliant mind. I love how you fight for Brianna, how you never give up even when everything seems hopeless. I love making breakfast with you on Sunday mornings and working in the garden and sitting on our porch watching fireflies. Grant dropped to one knee. Brianna let out a small squeal. Other visitors to the garden had stopped to watch, but Grant only saw Shanice's face. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to be your partner in everything. I want to be the person you lean on when things are hard and the person you celebrate with when things are good. And I want to be the best stepdad I can possibly be to Brianna. He pulled out the ring box and opened it. The diamond caught the October sunlight and sparkled brilliantly. Shanice, will you marry me? For a moment, Shanice couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. Then she laughed, a joyful sound that made Grant's heart soar. Yes, she said. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times yes. Grant stood and slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Then he pulled her into his arms and kissed her while Brianna cheered and the other garden visitors applauded. When they finally pulled apart, Brianna launched herself at both of them, hugging them tightly. We're going to be a real family now, she exclaimed. Can I be the flower girl? Can I wear a princess dress? You can wear whatever you want, Shanice said, laughing and crying at the same time. You can wear a dragon costume if that's what makes you happy. A purple dragon costume, Brianna decided. They walked through the rest of the gardens in a daze of happiness. Shanice kept looking at her ring, holding it up to the light as if she couldn't quite believe it was real. When did you decide to do this? She asked Grant. I've been thinking about it for months. But I wanted to make sure the timing was right. That we'd worked through our summer struggles and we're in a good place. We are, Shanice confirmed. We really are. That evening they called everyone they cared about to share the news. LaToya screamed so loud through the phone that they all jumped. Trevor and Nicole said they'd known it was coming and were thrilled. Even Grant's sister Amy, usually reserved, expressed genuine happiness. I'm proud of you, Grant, Amy said. You found something real. Hold on to it. The hardest call was to Shanice's mother-in-law, James's mother, who lived in Texas. They'd reconnected tentatively in recent months, the woman realizing she'd been wrong to cut off her granddaughter. Mrs. Williams, Shanice said nervously. I wanted to tell you something. Grant proposed to me today. We're getting engaged. There was a long pause. Then Mrs. Williams said, James would be happy for you, Shanice. He never wanted you to be alone. And from what Brianna tells me about this Grant fellow, he sounds like a good man. He is, Shanice said, relief flooding through her. A very good man. Then congratulations. I hope you'll bring Brianna to visit sometime soon. I'd like to meet him. After they hung up, Shanice turned to Grant with wonder in her eyes. She gave us her blessing. I never thought. Love has a way of healing things, Grant said. Of opening doors we thought were closed forever. They spent the evening making plans. They wanted a small wedding, just close friends and family. Something in the spring, giving them time to plan without rushing. I don't need anything fancy, Shanice said. I just want to stand up in front of the people we love and promise to be your wife. That sounds perfect to me, Grant said. Over the next few weeks, they settled into the excitement of being engaged. Shanice wore her ring proudly, and Brianna told everyone at school that her mom was getting married to the best guy in the world. At work, Shanice's colleagues threw her a surprise celebration. She came home that day glowing with happiness. Everyone was so excited, she told Grant. They kept asking to see the ring and asking about wedding plans. It felt good being celebrated like that. In early November they started looking at venues for the wedding. They wanted something simple and meaningful. They considered a hotel ballroom but it felt too impersonal. They looked at a historic mansion but it was too expensive. Then Shanice had an idea. What about the botanical gardens? Where you proposed? Grant's face lit up. That would be perfect. If they do weddings. They did. The gardens had a small pavilion near the rose garden that could accommodate up to 50 guests. It was available on a Saturday in late April. That's it, Shanice said, looking at the space. This is where I want to marry you. Planning the wedding became a family activity. Brianna helped choose flowers and design invitations. Grant handled the logistics with his usual efficiency. Shanice focused on the menu and music, wanting everything to reflect who they were as a couple. One evening in December, they sat at their kitchen table addressing invitations. Brianna was carefully writing names in her best handwriting while Grant sealed envelopes and Shanice checked addresses. Can I ask you something? Grant said to Shanice. Always. Do you ever think about James? About what he'd think of all this? Shanice set down her pen and considered the question. I do. All the time. And I think he'd be happy. He never wanted me to be alone. The last thing he said to me, the very last thing before he passed, was, "Promise me you'll find joy again." So yes, I think he'd approve. I think he'd like you. I wish I could have met him, Grant said. Me too. You would have liked each other. You're different people, but you both have this quality of steadiness, of being someone others can rely on. They continued working on the invitations, the comfortable silence of people who were secure in each other. Brianna hummed as she wrote, occasionally asking how to spell a name. "This is nice," Grant said. "All of us working together on something." "It is," Shanice agreed. "This is what I always wanted. A partner. Someone to share the boring tasks and the exciting moments and everything in between." "You have that now," Grant said. "Forever." "Forever," Shanice repeated, smiling. "I love the sound of that." Christmas arrived with their first holiday season as an engaged couple. They decorated the house together, Brianna insisting on putting the star on top of the tree. They baked cookies and watched holiday movies and hosted a party for their friends. LaToya pulled Grant aside at the party. "You know Shanice has been through a lot, right?" "I do," Grant said. "And you know that she's not always going to be easy to be with? That she has bad days, days when the grief hits her out of nowhere?" "I know." LaToya studied him. "Good. Because that woman is my best friend, and if you hurt her, I will make your life very uncomfortable." Grant smiled. "Noted. But LaToya, I have no intention of hurting her. I want to spend the rest of my life making her happy." "See that you do," LaToya said, but she was smiling too. As the year drew to a close, Grant found himself reflecting on how much had changed in 12 months. Last January he'd been alone, focused solely on work, going through the motions of a life that looked successful but felt empty. Now he had a family, a real family with all the beautiful messiness that entailed. On New Year's Eve they stayed home with Brianna. At midnight they turned on the TV to watch the ball drop in Times Square. Brianna, struggling to stay awake, was curled up between them on the couch. As the countdown began, Grant looked at Shanice. She was watching the screen, her profile illuminated by the television's glow, a soft smile on her face. And he thought about how a single moment of choosing to help had led to this. A life full of love and purpose. "Happy New Year," Shanice said, kissing him as the clock struck 12. "Happy New Year," Grant replied. "To the first of many together." "To many," Shanice agreed. They sat together in their living room, a family watching the new year begin. Outside, fireworks lit up the sky. But inside, everything was warm and safe and exactly as it should be. Brianna fell asleep before the celebration ended, and Grant carried her to her purple room, tucking her in carefully. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her sleep, this child who had saved him as much as he'd saved her. When he returned to the living room, Shanice was standing by the window looking out at the neighborhood. Grant came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how lucky we are," Shanice said. "How easily things could have gone differently. If you'd been running 5 minutes earlier or later. If I'd been too proud to accept your help. If Brianna hadn't been brave enough to ask a stranger for help. So many things had to go right for us to be standing here." "Fate," Grant suggested. "Maybe," Shanice said. "Or maybe just the universe rewarding us both for not giving up. For choosing to take chances on each other." They stood together, watching the last of the fireworks fade from the sky. The new year stretched ahead of them, full of possibilities. A wedding to plan, a life to build, a future to create together. "I can't wait to marry you," Grant said. "For more months," Shanice replied. "And then I'll be Mrs. Whitmore." "Or I could be Mr. Thompson," Grant suggested. "I'm flexible." Shanice laughed. "We'll figure it out. We have time." Time. That was what they had now, what neither of them had been sure they'd have a year ago. Time to love and build and grow. Time to be a family. Time to create the kind of life they'd both thought was impossible. And that, Grant thought as he held his fiancée in their living room while their daughter slept peacefully upstairs, was the greatest gift of all. April arrived with warming temperatures and the promise of new beginnings. The botanical gardens where Grant had proposed were in full bloom, more beautiful than Shanice had imagined when they'd booked it months ago. Cherry blossoms lined the paths, tulips created carpets of color, and the rose garden where they'd hold the ceremony was a riot of blooms. The week before the wedding was a blur of final preparations. Grant took the week off from work and Shanice did the same from her job. They spent the days finalizing details, making sure everything was perfect. On Wednesday, Amy arrived from Boston. She'd volunteered to coordinate the wedding day logistics, proving to be surprisingly organized despite her artistic temperament. Someone in this family needs to be practical, she said, reviewing the timeline with military precision. Grant, you're too nervous to think straight. Shanice, you're trying to do everything yourself. So I'm taking over. Neither of them argued. Brianna's purple dress arrived that same day. Not a dragon costume as she joked about, but a beautiful purple gown that made her look like a princess. She twirled in it repeatedly, unable to contain her excitement. I'm going to be the best flower girl ever, she declared. You already are, Shanice said, watching her daughter with tears in her eyes. On Thursday, Trevor and Nicole came over for dinner. They'd become close friends, a couple who understood the challenges of building a life together when you came from different backgrounds. Nervous? Trevor asked Grant while they grilled vegetables in the backyard. Terrified, Grant admitted. But in a good way. That's normal. I was a mess before my wedding. But once I saw Nicole walking down the aisle, everything else disappeared. It was just her and me and the promise we were making. That's what I want, Grant said. To focus on Shanice and the commitment we're making to each other. Friday evening, the rehearsal dinner took place at a restaurant Shanice and Grant both loved. Simple, unpretentious, with excellent food and warm atmosphere. About 30 people attended. Close friends, family, the few co-workers who had become genuine friends. LaToya stood up to give a toast, and Shanice braced herself, knowing her friend had no filter. I've known Shanice for 8 years, LaToya began. I've seen her at her best and her worst. I watched her fall in love with James. I was there when Brianna was born. I held her hand through the hardest times after James died. And I've never seen her as happy as she's been this past year with Grant. She turned to Grant. You showed up when Shanice needed someone. But more than that, you stayed. You didn't just rescue her and walk away feeling good about yourself. You committed. You became family. You chose to love not just Shanice but Brianna too. That takes a special person. To Grant and Shanice, LaToya raised her glass. May your marriage be filled with laughter, patience, and the kind of love that grows stronger with each passing year. Everyone drank to the toast. Grant felt emotion thick in his throat. Shanice squeezed his hand under the table. After dinner, as guests were leaving, Brianna came up to Grant. Can we talk? She asked seriously. Grant excused himself from the conversation he was having and followed Brianna to a quiet corner of the restaurant. What's up, kiddo? I just wanted to say thank you, Brianna said. For loving my mama. And for being nice to me. I know you're not my real dad, but you're the best stepdad I could ever have. Grant knelt down to her level. Brianna, being your stepdad is one of the greatest honors of my life. I love you and your mom so much. I love you too, Brianna said, hugging him tightly. Grant looked up to see Shanice watching them, tears streaming down her face. She mouthed, I love you, and Grant's heart felt full to bursting. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, warm sun, a gentle breeze. Grant woke early in the house he'd soon be sharing officially with his wife. He'd spent the night there alone at Amy's insistence that he and Shanice have one last night apart before the wedding. He put on his suit, a simple charcoal gray that Shanice had helped him choose. As he adjusted his tie, he thought about Shanice in the hotel where she and Brianna had spent the night, getting ready with LaToya and Amy's help. Trevor arrived to drive him to the gardens. Ready? He asked. More than ready. At the botanical gardens, chairs had been set up in the rose garden, arranged in a semicircle around the small arch where they'd exchange vows. The florist had woven roses and greenery around the arch, creating a living frame for their ceremony. Guests began arriving. Grant greeted each one, his nerves building as the ceremony time approached. He saw his parents arrive, their expressions showing surprise at the intimate, natural setting. They were used to formal affairs, but Grant had insisted on something that felt true to who he and Shanice were. At exactly 4 o'clock, the music began. A string quartet played a classical piece that Shanice had chosen. The guests stood and turned toward the path. First came Brianna, walking slowly and carefully, dropping purple rose petals from a basket. She looked serious and focused, determined to do her job perfectly. When she reached the front, she took her place beside where Grant stood and gave him a huge smile. Then the music changed, shifting to a song that made Grant's throat tighten. Pachelbel's Canon. Simple and timeless and beautiful. And Shanice appeared on the path. She wore a simple white dress that flowed around her like water. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, with a few small flowers woven through it. She carried a bouquet of roses in every color from their garden. No veil, no elaborate train, just Shanice in all her natural beauty. Grant forgot to breathe. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Shanice walked toward him alone, no one giving her away because she'd chosen this path herself. But as she passed each row of guests, they reached out to touch her hand or shoulder, a chain of love connecting her to the people who cared about her. When she reached Grant, she handed her bouquet to Latoya and took both his hands. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," Grant replied, his voice thick with emotion. The officiant, a friend of Trevor's who'd become ordained specifically for this ceremony, began to speak. "We're gathered here to witness the union of Grant and Shanice. This is a love story that began with an act of courage, a child asking a stranger for help. It continued with choices made daily to show up, to care, to build something real. And it brings us here, to this beautiful garden, where they'll promise to continue choosing each other every day for the rest of their lives." The ceremony was brief and meaningful. Grant and Shanice had written their own vows. Grant went first, his voice steady despite his emotions. "Shanice, 10 months ago you and Brianna walked into my life and changed everything. You taught me what courage looks like, what love looks like, what family really means. I promise to be your partner in all things. To support your dreams and celebrate your successes. To hold you when you're sad and laugh with you when you're happy. To be the best stepdad I can be to Brianna. To build a life with you that's full of love and hope and possibility. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life." Shanice's voice shook as she began her vows. "Grant, I once thought my life was over. That I'd used up all my chances at happiness. You showed me I was wrong. You showed me that life is full of second chances if we're brave enough to take them. I promise to be your partner and your equal. To trust you with my fears and my dreams. To let you help me when I need it and to help you when you need me. To build a family with you based on love and respect and honesty. I promise to choose you every morning for all our mornings to come." They exchanged rings, simple platinum bands that matched. As Grant slid the ring onto Shanice's finger, he felt the weight of the promise he was making. And he welcomed it. "By the power vested in me," the officiant said with a smile, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Grant, you may kiss your bride." Grant cupped Shanice's face in his hands and kissed her softly, aware of all the people watching but focused only on her. When they pulled apart, both were crying and smiling simultaneously. "Ladies and gentlemen," the officiant announced, "I present to you Mr. Grant Whitmore and Mrs. Shanice Whitmore." The guests erupted in applause. Brianna jumped up and down, cheering. The string quartet launched into a joyful recessional. Grant and Shanice walked back down the aisle together, hands linked, grinning at their friends and family. Brianna skipped behind them, still scattering rose petals even though the ceremony was over. The reception took place in the garden's pavilion, a space they decorated with lights and flowers. There was dinner and dancing and toasts. Grant danced with Shanice, then with Brianna, then with Amy, who surprised him by being emotional. "I'm proud of you," Amy said as they swayed to the music. "You did good, brother." "Thanks for helping make this happen," Grant said. "That's what family does." As the evening went on, Grant found moments to just watch. He watched Shanice laughing with Latoya, the two women who'd been through so much together. He watched Brianna teaching some of the other children a dance she'd learned at school. He watched his parents actually smiling, relaxing in a way he'd rarely seen. And he felt grateful. For every twist of fate that had led to this moment. For the courage of a little girl who'd asked a stranger for help. For the strength of a woman who'd survived unimaginable hardship and chosen to love again. For the opportunity to be part of their family. At the end of the night, they cut the cake, a simple 3-tier design with fresh flowers cascading down the sides. They fed each other pieces, both managing not to make a mess despite Brianna's encouragement to smash it in each other's faces. "Speech," someone called out. Grant took the microphone, pulling Shanice close to his side. "I'm not great with speeches," he began. "But I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who came today to celebrate with us. Thank you to Amy for organizing everything. Thank you to Trevor and Nicole for being such good friends. Thank you to Latoya for taking care of my wife long before I was part of her life." He looked down at Shanice. "And thank you to my beautiful wife. For giving me a chance. For letting me into your life and Brianna's life. For teaching me what really matters. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone." Shanice took the microphone. "I want to say something too. A year ago I was at my lowest point. I'd given up hope that things could get better. And then Grant appeared and everything changed. He showed me that there are still good people in the world. People who help without expecting anything in return. People who stay even when things get hard." She paused, collecting herself. "Grant, you gave me back my life. But more than that, you gave me back hope. You showed Brianna what it means to be a good man. You built a family with us. And I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much that means to me." Everyone applauded. Brianna ran up to hug both of them and they stood there, the three of them together, while their friends and family celebrated around them. The evening wound down around 10. They'd arranged for Brianna to stay with LaToya for a week while they went on their honeymoon. A trip to the Caribbean, a place neither Grant nor Shanice had ever been. As they said goodbye to their guest, Shanice held Brianna tight. "Be good for LaToya," she said. "I will, Mama. Have fun on your trip. Bring me back something cool." "We will, baby." Grant and Shanice drove to a hotel near the airport, checking in just before midnight. In their room, Shanice stood at the window, still in her wedding dress, looking out at the city lights. "What are you thinking?" Grant asked, coming to stand behind her. "About how far we've come. About that morning when I didn't wake up. If Brianna hadn't been brave. If you hadn't stopped. If any little thing had gone differently, we wouldn't be here. But we are here," Grant said. "And I plan to spend every morning for the rest of our lives making sure you wake up happy." Shanice turned to face him. "Every morning?" "Every single one." They kissed, long and deep, two people who'd found each other in the midst of crisis and built something beautiful from the wreckage of their separate pasts. A year and a half after that frozen January morning, Grant and Shanice woke up in their bedroom at home after returning from their honeymoon. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and bright. Shanice opened her eyes to find Grant already awake, watching her with a smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitmore," he said. "Good morning, Mr. Whitmore," Shanice replied. They could hear Brianna moving around downstairs, home from LaToya's now that they were back. Soon she'd come bounding up the stairs to jump on their bed, eager to hear about the trip and share stories from her week with her favorite aunt. But for now, for this moment, it was just the two of them. Two people who'd found love in the most unexpected way. Two people who'd learned that the best mornings weren't the ones that started perfectly, but the ones where you chose to face the day together. Shanice thought about all the mornings she'd woken up alone, terrified and exhausted. All the mornings she'd thought she couldn't go on. All the mornings when simply opening her eyes felt like an impossible task. But this morning was different. This morning she woke up in a bright room in a house full of love. She woke up next to a man who'd chosen her, not because he felt sorry for her, but because he loved her. She woke up knowing her daughter was safe and happy and thriving. This morning finally was perfect. "I love our mornings," Shanice said to Grant. "Me too," Grant replied, pulling her closer. "Every single one." And as the sun continued to rise, painting their room in shades of gold, Grant, Shanice and Brianna began another day together. Another morning in the life they'd built. Another chance to choose love and hope and family. Because sometimes the best stories aren't about never falling down. They're about finding someone who helps you stand back up, who chooses to stand beside you, and who shows you that morning always comes no matter how long the night. Have you ever wondered what you would do if faced with a situation where someone desperately needed help? Would you have the courage to step in like Grant did? This story shows us that kindness can change everything. If you believe in the power of love and second chances, subscribe to hear more stories like this. Share your thoughts in the comments below.